What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It's your host, Adam Perez, back once again with a brand new episode of A-Plus Hero Report, your weekly stop for your Marvel, DC, television, and movie news, streaming for you guys live today. We got a stacked show for you guys today. We're going to be diving into Bob Iger's comments in regards to the MCU 2025 slate. We even have the possibility of a new Green Lantern, John Stewart, as Aldis Hodge throws his name into the hat. We've also got a huge announcement in regards to a brand new Predator film, and even an additional Game of Thrones spinoff. So much more to definitely dive into, guys. So we'll see you on the other side. Welcome, one and all, to another episode of A-Plus Hero Report. It's fantastic to see each and every one of you guys this weekend. Not a stacked crew, but we still certainly have a crew here for you guys, as we're going to be presenting to you guys 6 main topics, our honorable mentions, and of course, our live viewer questions at the end of this particular show. What's going on, Stewart, man? Happy Super Bowl Sunday. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing really, really good right now. I had a very chill week because of how slow it's been at the theater. So yeah, no complaints here.
Any big movies in the theaters right now? I mean, it is February, so.
Yeah, not really. We had Lisa Frankenstein, which is a pretty funny movie. I saw that last weekend. Definitely recommend it. And then we have this other weird movie that just came out. I don't know if it's like getting a wide release, but it's called She Is Conan, and it's basically a really interesting artsy kind of take on the Conan franchise. It's not a bad movie. I definitely think it had a great first half, but then I think halfway through the movie, it almost changes its mind on what kind of movie it is, and then just completely goes a complete 180 on itself. And it's not that it becomes bad, it just feels like I'm watching a completely different movie afterwards. And it would have been cool on its own. But anyways, yeah, so I guess 2 movies I would recommend seeing
original films.
Yeah, both currently out in theaters. But yeah, depending on what kind of movie you're in the mood for. If you're in the mood for comedy, definitely go see Lisa Frankenstein. And then if you're in the mood for some artsy French, really cool, great cinematography, cinema, go watch She Is Conan.
Nice. Appreciate that recommendation, Stuart. Yeah, we always hear complaints all the time about not enough original movies out there and stuff. And I'm like, there's always an original movie or two out there. You just got to go and actually check it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you pointing those out. Yeah, guys, we got some great things lined up for you guys today. We got a Super Bowl later on today. Do you have any picks, Stuart, for your Super Bowl? Are you going to watch it at all, or not really?
I'm a little offended you would ask. I live in San Francisco. Of course, I gotta watch for the Niners.
I gotcha. Okay. I'm more of a Chiefs guy, so looks like we're gonna be butting heads today.
Oh, okay.
So it should be good. I think both teams definitely deserving of being there. I'm surprised the Chiefs actually made it based off of just the up and down roller coaster season that they've had. But I guess when you got Patrick Mahomes, you can accomplish anything. So we'll see. We'll see how this Super Bowl goes. Brock Purdy's been pretty amazing. They got a stacked team, great defense, so I think it's going to be a good one. And I think they also have Usher doing the Super Bowl halftime show along with Alicia Keys, so that to definitely look forward to. Also, I'm trying to think here what else we can get into. Look, guys, if you guys are in the live chat, do us a big favor, man. Hit that like button. It definitely does go a long way. If you also hit that bell notification, so anytime we do go live or drop a brand new video, you guys will certainly be notified. Who's in our live chat with us today? We got Enrique Perez. He says, I just saw the new official Super Bowl trailers and commercials for new upcoming movies and TV series for right now with Despicable Me 4, Inside Out 2, Knuckles on Paramount Plus series. He says, I also saw a teaser trailer for the new Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. It's a 2D animated series. And finally tonight, more movie trailers will be revealed during Super Bowl broadcast. Yeah, I think when it comes to the Super Bowl, I think a lot of people definitely tune in. If not for the game, then definitely for the commercials and movie trailers. We're definitely going to be highlighting some things to definitely look out for when it comes to the Super Bowl today. A lot of those trailers dropped this week, right? We had the Knuckles trailer, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We kind of blasted that on social media, on our IG, even on our reels here on our Facebook page. A lot to look forward to, man. We got Ram Jam in the house. What's going on, man? Christopher Throbbin, what's up, man? He says, what's up, A+ Cluster. It's good to have you in here, man. I know I usually see you in the Discord. If you guys want to join our Discord forum community, please do so, man. We it hasn't been as active as as far as I would like to personally be on there, but we definitely got Ram Jam in there, Christopher Throbbin, Datila certainly in there from time to time. So if you like that forum community and meeting other people in the A+ community, there is a link in the description box below, guys. Certainly feel free to go ahead and join over there. Ram Jam says, I'm going to enjoy and watch the Super Bowl later on today. Yeah, there's a lot of things I'm really looking forward to when it comes to the Super Bowl. So anything that catches your eye, Stewart?
Oh man, I need to check out the Tales of the Ninja Turtles trailer because I really enjoyed the movie, so I'm excited to see like what they do in between movies. Because from what I hear, it's going to be 2 seasons of a show, and then that's when the sequel comes out. I don't know if the show is going to directly tie into it, but it will be canon though, which is
I know. I am curious how connected the series will be to the second to the sequel for TMNT Mutant Mayhem. But you're right. I think it's some maybe solo adventures of the brothers kind of on their own sort of thing, but 2 seasons of that, and then it does kind of throw itself into the sequel also. The Knuckles trailer I thought was actually pretty interesting. I love the fact that Idris Elba's coming back to voice him. They refer to it as a 6-episode event series, so it feels very much like it's a limited series, and that's another series I'm kind of curious if that will lead into Sonic 3 also.
So something that really surprises me looking at the Knuckles TV show, and then it's the exact same thing with the show that I just finished watching yesterday. But I watched the Ted TV show, which surprisingly, this is coming from a guy who liked the first Ted movie and hated the second one. The TV show is actually really good. I even if you don't like the Ted movies, I actually do recommend giving the show a chance is all. It's like Orville. I went in with really low expectations, and I think that's what really helped my experience with the show. But anyway, sorry, I went on tangent there. What I meant to say was like the thing about Knuckles that really intrigues me is like the CG on him for a TV show looks really, really good. Like it's funny because like there was a time where like doing CG like that in a show would have been kind of impossible. You would have had to accept that it was going to look like garbage basically. And that's not the case anymore. Now you got like some, I'm assuming they're not going to go as like all out as they would if it was a movie, but regardless what they're able to do again with a TV show, it's just absolutely incredible nowadays. Cause both Knuckles and then of course, like in Ted, they look incredible. So yeah, it's just cool times that we're living in.
Yeah, absolutely. I have heard good things about the Ted series, and another series I've been hearing really good things about is the Chucky series. I think Chucky's going on like its 3rd season or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe even the 4th. I'm not quite sure, but I've been hearing really good things about it. It's not really a franchise that I'm like in love with to certainly check out, but if you guys are big fans of Chucky, definitely check out the television series for sure.
I do love that like the show does like consider all the movies, like even the ones that were like straight to DVD, like all of it is connected to the TV show. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because a lot of times these days, whenever they want to reboot or something like that or create something new, they usually will exclude some of those sequels, right? Like Halloween, I think was like, let's just forget about the additional 3 or 4 that we came out with.
Did that twice.
Yeah, they've done that a couple times, right? So yeah, Chucky really embraces sort of all aspects of what's come before. So I think that's pretty neat. We got Tony Robinson. He says, "What's up, Adam and Stuart? Good to see you in here, Tony, man. I appreciate you stopping by today on today's episode. For those of you who are not familiar, we're going to go ahead and get into our first topic of, well, not first topic, but our first segment of the show, and that is our honorable mentions. I guess we kind of already broke ground talking a little bit about the Knuckles series. But for those of you who don't know, when it comes to honorable mentions, just topics that we thought you guys certainly deserve to know about that maybe just didn't quite make the cut for our top 6 this week. But some things that we definitely wanted to go ahead and bring to your attention. First up, for me at least, The Phantom Menace, guys, is celebrating its 25th anniversary. They actually redesigned a brand new poster for this event. They wound up releasing this yesterday. I can't believe it's been 25 years. It definitely ages me for sure, as I do remember seeing this movie in theaters. But to celebrate the 25th anniversary, it's going to be in theaters beginning that Friday, May 3rd, and all through the weekend to celebrate May the 4th be with you. It's been a minute. It's not necessarily my favorite of the prequel series, but it definitely has one of my favorite lightsaber battles
Yes.
but in all honesty, may have my ass back in this movie theater seat to experience that and the Duel of Fates soundtrack all over again. Do you have any interest in checking this one out, Stuart?
Yes. So funny enough, one of the earliest movies I remember seeing in theaters was Star Wars: A Phantom Menace. So, I feel like I definitely gotta see this one in theaters. I missed it the first time it got re-released back in, what was it,
Oh
like
yeah,
2012, I want to say, when they re-released it in 3D. And from what I
that's
hear,
right.
it absolutely bombed
Uh,
at the box office. But I think this re-release, it'll probably do a lot better. And it kind of comes down to we mention this all the time. It's a generational kind of thing, because when the
yes.
prequels were, coming out one by one, everyone was saying, or, a lot of the older crowds watching this were saying, oh, these prequels ruined Star Wars for me. And, we get to nowadays where you got the Disney sequels, and now suddenly it's like a complete like opposite. Now it's like, oh, these Disney sequels are ruining the prequels for me, that kind of a thing. So I think because of that, there's been a huge spike in people that really enjoy the prequels. A lot
Yes.
more are, being of like, are saying, hey, I don't care what everyone says. The prequels, I thought, worked for in one way or another. So anyways, all that to be said, I think with the new resurgence of the love for the prequels, I think that this movie will actually do good upon re-release. That is my personal prediction. It's going to do a lot better than when they did it the first time around.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong in that at all. There is definitely a bigger celebration for the prequel series, for the prequel trilogy. And I even think, I think even Lucasfilm kind of recognizes that, because I feel like in a lot of their recent stuff that they've released, there's a lot of connections, I feel like,
Mhm.
to the prequels, a little Easter eggs here and there, sort of thing, to kind of make those further connections that I think people are really appreciating. So you're absolutely right. And again, I got to admit, I grew up on the original trilogy. I remember seeing this film and not necessarily being super pleased with it, but I remember being blown away by the final act. The final act was everything for me, but I didn't really care for the performances, which is crazy considering we had Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor in here. Ewan definitely at a very early stage of his career, and I think it really showcased some of the flaws of George Lucas's sort of directing skills. And you take into account a lot of the green screen effect. It was very brand new, the technology during that time period. But I wind up eating up episodes 2 and episodes 3. The aesthetics changed. Everybody got more comfortable in their role, sort of thing. For episode 1, didn't really necessarily care for, and I definitely was one of those bandwagoners at first. I was like, I don't, I wouldn't go so far as to say it ruined Star Wars for me, because clearly it didn't, but it definitely left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth until I was able to get into episode 2.
Mm.
But I'm definitely going to try and check this one out if I can. So again, guys, May 3rd, which is a Friday, and that weekend for May 4th, the re-release of The Phantom Menace. And I agree with you, Stuart. I do think it's going to do much better.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We also got ourselves some brand new Daredevil Born Again set photos. And I got to tell you, Stuart, these set photos this week have been fire. Whether some people care for the costume or not, it's continuing to grow on me. And I think we've got some incredible shots this week that have really kind of been pretty eye opening. These are from a select um, different group of photographers. Some of these from justjared.com. You can get a little bit of a glimpse here. I don't know what day this one was certainly released, but you get an opportunity to see. I think this might be the stunt man. I don't know if this is Charlie Cox in his costume at all, though. We also get the opportunity to see the gentleman that is next to, that might be Charlie Cox. I don't know. The gentleman that's next to Daredevil in here is Bullseye, as the actor that played Bullseye from the original Netflix series is returning. So he does have a pretty funky costume, not quite the full-on Bullseye costume I would like to see from the comic books, but I think maybe we will eventually get there. And then we got a little bit of a glimpse here of Foggy and Karen, certainly back as well. So I thought those were pretty cool to finally see them on set. And some of my favorite photos, Stuart, emerged this week too. Getting the, I love this pose of him, seeing him on the fire escape on the side of the building. This just feels very sort of iconic Daredevil pose to me. He may not be sitting on top of a church cross or like a gargoyle at the top of a church, but this is as epic, I think, of a Daredevil pose and photo that we've seen so far. How have you liking some of these?
Love all of it. I know a lot of people aren't too big on the costume, and I definitely get it. It does look a little cheaper than the costumes that we've seen before. But honestly, I think color wise, I do love the aesthetics, like what they do with the colors. And I think the reason they chose this one that's like a little brighter and a little more like, I don't know, like a little more of a solid red rather than it being kind of a darkish red. I think it's just easier to be more flexible with what it looks like in post-production. So I think that even if you don't really love the costume, what it looks like on, the cameras that were taken for the behind the scenes sets, keep in mind, it is going to look probably significantly different. Like when we see it, in the actual episode. I am so glad that we got Foggy and Karen back after the rumors, previously when, the original 3 episodes were shot and then they scrapped him. Apparently the original plan was that Foggy and Karen would be killed off screen, and it was only going to be mentioned through dialogue. We were never even going to get a flashback about it. So I'm so glad that that's not the case with this, redone version of the series. So normally, I'd say, if you've already shot it, why start over? You've already, gone this direction, keep going. But in this particular case, because of, the characters that they almost, got rid of off screen, I'm glad they decided to start over.
Yeah, I'm pretty glad that they decided to start over also. I just hope it really comes together in post-production. And I agree with you. I do think one of the reasons they went with this color is because you're right. I do think it might be beneficial for them when it comes to post-production if they have to change the lighting. And that is one of the sort of disclaimers I would always tell people. Even if you see something in a set photo, it's definitely not going to look that's definitely not what it's going to look like when you actually watch the film, because you've got so many lighting rigs out there, flashes from cameras and stuff, right? Really overexposes things at times. So take these type of things with like a grain of salt. Just enjoy the fact that we got Daredevil certainly back. And I do think when the actual series winds up dropping, I think you guys will definitely be pleased with it. This is the next photo I'm going to show you, though, is my favorite action shot here. As we get to see Daredevil sort of swinging into action from the rooftops, as I believe he's trying to save Karen and Foggy in this sequence. But it's not just the idea of Daredevil himself swinging off of this rooftop. It's also the cameraman, bro. The cameraman behind him has to be some sort of stunt man in his own right. I have no idea. Like, if they're just taking some random cameraman and like, hey, bro, we want you to leap off of this and follow Daredevil down to the street below. The balls that it has to take and the trust that your stunt coordinators and everybody has all your rigs set up perfectly. He's got to be just as effing crazy as Daredevil is to jump off of this and the stunt man. So props to the cameraman for even following Daredevil off of this. And to be honest with you, I cannot wait to see what this shot looks like in the Daredevil Born Again. Like, I really want to see how it all comes together. This better not be a shot that they cut out of the film, out of the series for sure, with the cameraman risking his life like this. But I think this is an awesome shot, and I cannot wait to see what it looks like. How do you feel about this one?
100% agree with everything you just said. The main thing I'm curious about, though, is whether or not he's like jumping, like freestyle jumping off the building, or if he's using his what do you call them?
It's like his batons?
Yeah, batons. Because I know that, like, in the comic books, they're, he's able to swing around from one building to another with them, kind of like Spider-Man. So I'm wondering if he's using those to swing off the building, or if he's just straight up jumping off the building.
I think he's using them because he's got his arm extended and it looks like there is something coming out of his hand almost. So I do wonder if that will represent his baton. I mean, you can clearly see like the rigs and the lines on his back for the stunt work, but I have a feeling it's going to be his batons, and if so, I think it's pretty badass. But I love this shot. This is the one that really stuck out to me of all of them. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to some of these Daredevil photos. And then last but not least, we wind up getting a trailer for A Quiet Place Day 1, that's starring Lupita Nyong'o, along with Joseph Quinn, most notably known recently from Stranger Things season 4, if I'm not mistaken. They wind up dropping a little bit of a teaser trailer here this week, and this is the poster. Hear How It All Began, which I love it. The great play on words of here, considering how quiet everybody certainly has to be once this invasion winds up starting. But, before I even get into the trailer, Stuart, I think the art sometimes of making great posters is really lost on people these days. And this is a great poster, I think, because I do think you have to have posters that really showcase the emotion, and really kind of leave you on the edge of your seat as to explaining what the movie might be about, but also leaving a sense of mystery. And I think Lupita Nyong'o's reaction in here just really speaks volumes. Like, as a viewer, I'm like, oh my God, what is she looking at? Like, what terror is headed her way in order for her to have this sort of reaction? And then just seeing the mass of people around her scrambling, there is just something really emotional and impactful in this poster that I'm a big fan of.
Yes. I mean, just the two words that they have, kind of tell us everything we need to know. This is day one of A Quiet Place, the beginning of, the invasion that caused the apocalypse. I always love post-apocalyptic movies. They're a great way to kind of, just tell very unique stories. And also, a lot of times, really good, clever social commentary can be implemented. But the thing is, when it's already an apocalypse, it's a lot easier to write like people trying to survive in an already established like apocalyptic universe than it is to like establish how the apocalypse started. It's easy when it's all done off screen and it's all done through dialogue, but actually making a movie where it's like we see the apocalypse like starting, that's really hard to do. There's a reason like a lot of post-apocalyptic movies just start in the middle of the apocalypse. It's just a lot easier to write. So this is a challenging movie to make, and I'm really excited to see how they pull it off, especially with something like A Quiet Place, where we know more about these aliens now than the characters in it. Very opposite of how it was in the other two Quiet Place movies, where we follow a family who's completely adept to the new world. But now we're going to be following people that have to learn about this new world that we as an audience already know about. A lot of cool things about this. Great cast, of course.
Yeah.
Haven't checked out the teaser yet, but just from this poster alone, I'm hyped.
Yeah, I would recommend everybody check out the teaser if you haven't yet. We did post it up on our Facebook page for you guys if you want to check it out that way, or check it on YouTube, but definitely worth checking out for yourself. But solid teaser trailer if you ask me. Really great sort of, I don't want to say it's like Independence Day, but just the idea of like something coming out from the skies, seeing an invasion kind of taking place. And then I think if anything, they've gotten more comfortable with showing us the creatures for sure. And that's highlighted a little bit more in there. But make no mistake, creatures or not, you can feel the intensity level in this in the trailer. So definitely go ahead and check it out for yourselves, guys.
And but I just realized looking at it on IMDb, it's actually not directed by the what's his name, Jonathan Krasinski. It's not directed by him anymore. It's actually going to be directed by the same guy who directed the Nicolas Cage movie Pig.
Oh, nice. Okay, nice. Yeah, I can definitely see some of his directorial work just in the teaser trailer alone. But go ahead and check it out for yourselves, guys, if you have not done so yet. Let's see here. Any live viewer questions before we get into this? Tony Robinson says Scream and Chucky are pretty consistent. Yeah, they're pretty consistent. Although I am kind of curious as to the direction that Scream is going to go now. We've had a lot of people sort of drop out of that franchise out of this this upcoming installment. So I do find Scream maybe in a really odd place as to, do we just reboot it, or do we just find a whole new cast members and just continue on with a brand new story in this world? So that will be interesting. But yeah, Chucky's pretty consistent.
Super disappointing because they had the perfect setup for a third movie, I think, at the end of Scream. What was the last one? Scream 6. Yeah, Scream 6. I think they had like a perfect setup for Scream 7 with that cast, but my idea of the direction that they could have gone with would not work unless you had the two sisters, and we know for a fact that the two sisters are unfortunately out, which is really, really too bad because I was really loving their story arc from the 5th and the 6th movie.
Who else we got in here? We got Christopher Throbbing. Who doesn't want to see Jar Jar step in icky goo on the big screen? Yeah, I feel you there. We got Blossom in the house. What's up, Blossom? Good to see you. Christopher Throbbing talking about Daredevil photos. These photos look great. Yeah, I agree, man. I've been following Daredevil updates on Twitter, and they've been posting some amazing stuff up there. They just posted a quick, was it a GIF? I don't know how the fuck they pronounce it, of Charlie Cox doing some solo stunt work. Like you could see him like going over his moves and stuff. It's pretty cool. Daredevil updates has some. They must have been on set a lot this week watching them film. Enrique, he says Moana 2 just released a teaser trailer this week. They did. Very brief. I think it's only like 10-15 seconds or so, but it got me hyped. I was a big fan of the first Moana. I've seen it several times with my little boy too, and it keeps growing on me. I was a big fan of that film. Did you like Moana, the first one? Did you ever see it?
Oh yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. Marcelino, what's up, Marcelino? Good to see you in here, man. He says, hello, I just started watching the Hellraiser movies, first 5 and the reboot, and my God, they are confusing. I don't quit stuff, but I don't think I can continue, especially since number 5 was so boring.
Okay, that is because from 5 and then every movie after that, until you get to the Hulu reboot, they are all bargain bin DVDs that were only made so Harvey Weinstein could keep the rights to the movie. Essentially, he took scripts from like amateur writers, paid them like $100 to rewrite the script and add Hellraiser into it, and then they made these movies for like the cheapest, the lowest fucking budget you could possibly imagine. And yeah, it was basically Hellraiser 5 through like, you know, however many movies came out straight to DVD. I don't even consider them real movies, basically. Let me put it that way.
Marceline also says, yes, you guys finally talk about Chucky. Also, I regard in regards to Daredevil Born Again, people keep saying finally Marvel is giving something that the fans want. I mean, I think
they've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a while. I mean, not everybody's gonna like everything, but I do think that they are appealing to what other fans do want. I mean, it may be a smaller group of fans from time to time, like She-Hulk. People may not have loved She-Hulk, but I'm pretty sure there's maybe a group of fans that are like, I would really like a She-Hulk project. And Marvel, you know, fulfilled their dreams, especially Moon Knight. It may not necessarily be up to, you know, what people might have wanted it to be, but they're definitely doing their best in regards to at least giving people what they want. So I don't know if I would say that for the fans, but I get what you're saying though, Marcelino.
Yeah, let me put it this way. Disney or Marvel tries their best to give fans what they want. They just may not give it to you the way that you want it because, yeah, the thing is, you got hundreds of people working on every single production. So you may want something a very specific way, and that's not going to happen, you know, unless you yourself are the one in charge of the project.
But I will say, I do think them going back to the drawing board for Daredevil, maybe listening to some of the fans' response, them themselves seeing like, what kind of cluster F did we just create here, and going back to the drawing board, I definitely do think that the fans are certainly winning in this regards. And last but not least, before we move on, because I don't know why I almost completely skipped this, we got to talk about the Super Bowl movie trailers that are set to drop. It's going to be a pretty big day, I think, in regards to some trailers, especially on the Paramount side, because I believe CBS is airing the Super Bowl this year. And the Variety article that we have right here does highlight the idea that Paramount might be pretty heavy-handed here when it comes to trailers and stuff. So let's check this out. It says, when it comes to this year's Super Bowl, one studio will dominate the field by running nearly a dozen spots for its upcoming and existing releases. Paramount is expected to unveil ads for the post-apocalyptic horror prequel, A Quiet Place Day One. So if you missed the teaser trailer, it may be playing on the Super Bowl this week. The reggae biopic Bob Marley, One Love, and the movie If, which is a live-action fantasy comedy directed by John Krasinski and starring Ryan Reynolds. I did get the opportunity to see a brief behind-the-scenes sort of featurette for If, and it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. I think it's about like a kid that gets the opportunity to see like other people's imaginary friends, even like adults and things like that. So leave it up to Ryan Reynolds to come up with something pretty creative along with John Krasinski here. So I'm really eager to see how people respond to the If movie. It also says Paramount will loom large over the Super Bowl because beyond the studio's cinematic offerings, it will use promotional space for Paramount Plus. The streaming service will unspool 8 ads for such titles as the Sonic the Hedgehog spinoff Knuckles. So we'll see a little bit more of that. The animated adventure Tiger's Apprentice. The Sylvester Stallone-led reality show The Family Stallone. And also says sci-fi series Halo, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and then, of course, the UEFA Champions League. I think they even said somewhere in here that the movie, it says buying a 30-second ad during the most watched television of the event of the year doesn't come cheap. A prime spot in the first quarter could run approximately $70 million. $7 million for 30 seconds. It says, as the box office struggles to return to its pre-pandemic strength, Hollywood is hoping these massive marketing spends will translate into substantial ticket sales for upcoming blockbusters. So again, $7 million for 30 seconds. It says that's why Disney is likely to promote several of its summer tent poles during football's hottest night. It's possible that viewers will enjoy a first look at Deadpool 3. So we can look out for that. It says Pixar's anticipated sequel, Inside Out. And according to sources familiar with those films, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes may also snag a spot. What I'm hearing about Deadpool 3 is that it may not even be the full trailer. I think we might get ourselves like a 30-second sort of teaser. And then I think they are going to release the full trailer online, maybe to go ahead and save themselves some money. Because if it's like a 2-minute trailer, I can't, at $7 million for 30 seconds, ain't no way.
$28 million.
Yeah, we may just get a 30-second spot for Daredevil 3. But I do believe, if anything, it's probably going to drop fully later on today. Online, so that to look forward to. But I would love to see more of Inside Out too, and give me more Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, as Deadpool 3 and Kingdom are both on my top 5 most anticipated movies of the year list. So I'm definitely looking forward to that as well.
Also, speaking of anticipated movies of the year, the more I watch that Dune trailer, the more I regret not putting it at number 1 on my list.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. I did see some new footage of it. It looks pretty good, man. I've been hearing Zendaya, Florence Pugh. They've been doing a lot of promotional work lately, talking about Dune. It's actually kind of getting me hyped for it. And I haven't even seen the first one, but the more they talk about it, I'm like, damn, I need to check this out.
Have you seen the AMC popcorn tubs that they are giving out?
It's like a worm, right? It's like the sandworm.
Oh,
it looks
my God.
massive.
It looks okay. I'm like let's put it this way. I don't want to put a photo of it on our channel because I'm afraid we'll get demonetized. It is the weirdest thing that someone came up with that design and said, hey, this is something that people are going to be putting their hands into to eat popcorn. And like someone looked at it and was like, yeah, that's a great idea.
Even Christopher's like, are they still releasing those popcorn buckets?
Yeah.
Apparently so.
Not at our theater, just AMC as far as I know.
Yeah, man, it's maybe not necessarily pleasing to the eyes as to but yeah, let us know if you've seen the popcorn buckets for Dune 2 in the comment section box below. But that will wrap it up for our honorable mentions. Our honorable mentions went a little bit longer, but that's because I forgot about the Super Bowl spots to certainly talk about. But Stewart, you ready to get into these main topics with me, man?
Always.
Let's do it. Because, we love to kick off with our comic book talk here, whether it be DC or Marvel. But today it's going to be Marvel and a little bit of Disney here, as Bob Iger this week had a Q1 earnings call. And usually when Bob Iger gets on the phone, he's going to be spilling some type of information for us. The movie industry continues to kind of be in flux right now, with the balance between theatrical releases along with streaming services. And really after sort of the post-pandemic era, really the idea of trying to get people back into the movies, get that excitement building. In 2023, at least when it comes to certain genres, the the box office hasn't necessarily been too pleasing, to certainly say the least. A lot of financial flops, despite some of these movies out there being relatively good, but people just may not necessarily be going to the movies as much as they certainly used to. And so Bob Iger really addressed that this week in regards to what Disney, Pixar, and even Marvel Studios might be doing kind of going forward that they personally feel will in fact sort of change the trajectory for themselves. So I thought some of this stuff was pretty eye-opening. What we're going to highlight first is really going to be Bob Iger's new strategic approach. And then after that, we're going to dive right into really what he had to say about the upcoming sort of MCU slate. So let's go ahead and dive into this one. This one actually comes to us from thewrap.com, letting us know that when it comes to Disney, it says Disney is leaning more into sequels and franchises. Actually, a smart thing is what he refers to it. It says the CEO adds that the studio would reduce output at Marvel after its recent flood of streaming. Now, I can hear people's eyes rolling immediately, like more sequels, more franchise. I hear it already. So let's go ahead and dive into this, Stewart, and see what he had to say. It says, get ready for more sequels and franchises from Disney. CEO Bob Iger said on the company's Wednesday earning calls that its stable of studios will be leaning more into familiar faces in theaters in the coming years. This is what Iger had to say. He says, I'd say we're leaning a little bit more into sequels and franchises. I think given the environment and given what it takes to get people out of their homes to see a film, leaning on franchises that are familiar is actually a smart thing. He says he also noted that Disney would be walking back the strategy it had taken when it launched Disney Plus to reduce a wave of streaming titles for the service. Marvel Studios in particularly leaned heavily into this strategy, releasing the popular WandaVision in early 21 before releasing several more titles like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk to diminishing returns. He says, in our zeal to greatly increase volume, partially tied to this one. Oh, where'd it go? He says, in our zeal to greatly increase volume, partially tied to this wanting to chase more global subs for our streaming platform, some of our studios lost a little focus. So the first step is that we've taken is that we've reduced the volume. We reduced output, particularly in Marvel. Iger's promise to make less but more of the titles audiences loved most is reflective in Disney's new slate additions. During an earnings calls, the studio announced that sequels to its hit 2016 film Moana and Zootopia will be the company's Thanksgiving releases in 2024 and 2025, respectively. And I think they also go on to mention that they are expecting a brand new Toy Story movie as well. One of the reasons why they're probably leaning into more Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We've got clearly the sequel for Deadpool 3 here, and they've got the Lion King prequel Mufasa to really highlight that, along with Frozen, which we're going to be getting ourselves another sequel. So some really big popular franchises that we're going to be seeing more of. And Bob Iger thinks that is the key to success here, Stewart. How are you feeling about some of his comments here? Do you think he's on the right track? Do you think he's kind of, I mean, from a fan perspective, look, we're not CEOs of any company, okay? So is this a trajectory that you expected Disney to go, reducing output and focusing on franchises and sequels that people are familiar with?
Yeah, this unfortunately, this makes a lot of sense, and it's just he's not wrong completely. There are a lot of times where it's just like, people will definitely see sequels over an original movie, even with Disney, even if the movie does look like it's going to be something really good. So I don't know. It's like, it's something that I hate because like I want to see more original movies out there. I'd rather them spend I'm not saying I don't want to see sequels or franchises expand, but I think there's a balance you could have of the two. But I also get why, as a CEO, if you're only thought your only focus is money, I get why you would think that this is a good idea. And As to whether or not it's going to pay off, I can't say for sure. I've, in my head, I want to say that yes, this is a smart business strategy, but at the same time, I've been wrong when it comes to this kind of thing before, especially when it comes to Disney. A lot of times, when it comes to me predicting something's going to be a huge success or something's going to be a huge flop, it always kind of goes, yeah, I'm always wrong. So this is actually one of the times that I actually do kind of hope I am actually. I don't know. Again, yeah, I don't know what. Goddamn, this is like the hardest I'm overthinking this, man. I don't know why I'm overthinking this so much. I'm overthinking it because I want to say this is a bad idea, but I also know that might not be true. And unfortunately, I think he is on the right path, even though I don't agree with it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. It is one of those things. I mean, because the article even later on goes on to say in here that over the past 2 years, Disney has seen 2 original animated flops in coveted November Hollywood release dates. They had Strange World, a film inspired by Adventure Comics, became Disney's biggest bomb since 2020, since 2002 film's Treasure Planet, grossing $73 million at the box office. They had the movie Wish did better than Strange Worlds, but still sputtered amidst tepid audience and critical reviews. So it's the idea that it's like, look, we have been putting out original content, and nobody's going to see these movies. But the franchises that people love, despite the fact that it is sequels, people continue to go back to it. They love these characters, they love these stories, and they keep going back to it. So do I think that Disney should stop making original things? No, but I do think that they need to maybe focus a little bit more on the quality. If they are worried about the idea that maybe we're putting out too much, maybe that does hinder it. So if you want to reduce what you're doing and still focus on the sequels and franchises, I think that should be okay. But I do think you still have to put some original things out there, because what are we're gonna get to Toy Story 10? You know what I'm saying? Like Frozen 5? Like that just seems bananas to me. So I think you do have to make some swings, but the swings that you take, when it comes to original stuff, they have to land. And look, maybe it's the idea that you take these franchises, you take these sequels, and you create very like new supporting characters that can really almost stand on their own. So where if you then want to make a spin-off of something that's original but still connected to an award-winning or a fan-loving franchise, maybe that's kind of the direction that you go, creating stronger characters in these franchises that you can then eventually sort of peel off to somewhere else. If anything stands out to me in this that I do want to address, there's a part of me where he says, I think given the environment and given what it takes to get people out of their homes to see a film, leaning on franchises that are familiar is actually a smart thing. His end result of trying to get people back into the movie theaters by leaning onto the franchises, I can see how he would make that connection. But I would also challenge Bob in this. And that would be the idea of, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves, is that ever since streaming services came out, the release windows for movies in the theaters have just shrunk. Before, I think a movie would have to be in theater for like at least 3 months, maybe a little bit longer than that, before it actually came onto the streaming service, so that you would force people, if you really want to see this movie, you got to go to the movie theaters, right? But now we've got such quick turnaround of like 30 days, 45 days. There are times when I tell myself I've got plenty of time to see a movie in theaters, and I wait a couple of weeks and then I go back and look, and it's not even in theaters anymore, or it's super limited screen sort of thing, right? Like I don't get the opportunity to see it on a Dolby Cinema or an IMAX anymore. Now I got to see it in like theater 10 with like the smallest seats and not the best quality screen in the world, right? So I think there are a lot of people that have now got so accustomed to the idea of, I really want to see this movie, but I don't want to spend $20 or, just for me, or $30 for just myself and some popcorn to go see a movie that in a month and a half I can just chill at home and watch for free, or pay for like 5.99 to see a film, sort of thing. So I do think that the implementation of how long are these movies staying in movie theaters, I think will really go a long way. If you force them to stay in theaters for, say, 3-4 months, and people probably just can't wait that long to see this movie. People are done talking about it, right? The buzz is probably gone on social media. I don't know if people will then want to just sit around and wait for it to drop on streaming services. So I do think they have to really change that model. And I do think in turn, then it will force people to be their opening day, be their opening week, maybe not having such big, significant drop off, say, in the second or third week, because people are just anticipating it to drop on streaming service and they don't have to leave anywhere. They don't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money. They can just watch it in the comfort of their own home. And I think that in it of itself really undercuts what a movie can certainly make at the box office, because it almost feels like it's got to be these big event, once in a lifetime films now to get you out to see a movie, instead of just the idea of just taking your family or just picking yourself up and going to a movie to enjoy a film, instead of just waiting a month and a half to see something in streaming. And so I do think that while Bob Iger might be onto something with the idea of like, hey, people love seeing these franchises, I still think that you can make original and solid content, but by forcing people to go to the movies, if it stays in theaters 3 or 4 months before it winds up hitting your streaming television screens. You know what I mean? Does that sound like something you think?
No, I think you're spot on. That's a factor. I think that'll like a lot of like I feel like general audiences are bringing that up all the time, but for some reason studios are pretending isn't even a factor. I think because
Right.
maybe if they do admit it, then it means it happened to admit that the idea of like moving everything to streaming as fast as they did was a bad idea, and I don't think any studio wants to do that. I also think like kind of thinking more back on the whole thing. So I guess the big thing I'm concerned about with this statement is, so I'll use Pixar as the easiest example for what I'm talking about. So it used to be with Pixar, for example, a lot of their movies, even the really, really good movies like Up, for example, while it made money in the box office, it didn't really make much money beyond that because it's not really a toy that you can, or it's not really a movie that you can make that many toys on. So a movie like that, for example, does good, but doesn't fully benefit them. So that's why Pixar will constantly go back to a franchise like Cars, because Cars will make them so much money, they can fund other original content that will have that same heart and soul that you expect to see from Pixar. And I think my concern with Bob Iger is that might not be his end game. I think that if he wants to release a bunch of sequels or stick to franchises so that they can bring up Disney stock again, I think that's fine. I'm just hoping that that doesn't become like the status quo going forward. I hope that that's used so that they can use that money to fund other original projects in the future, like the way Pixar did it, basically.
No, I think you're absolutely right there. And look, I think while I love streaming services, I do think it's become a detriment to the movie theaters because, like you mentioned, it seems like the focus now is how quickly can we make money for
Mhm.
our stockholders and our shareholders, right? We have to appease them. And we've invested so much in these streaming services due to the pandemic. Now that seems like it's in another like option of monetizing and making money, and they've really forgotten about the idea of trying to make money in the box office. And so I feel like it puts Bob Iger in a very weird place of, hey, we want these movies to do well in the box office so we can make a profit, and like you said, use that money to then go towards the idea of making other films. But now it's also that balance of, but wait, we got all these shareholders in our streaming services that we also have to appease, and we have to make sure that our subscriber count continues to go up and up and up, and releasing a bunch of stuff in order to kind of make them happy. And I think at the end of the day, they're really kind of pulling and tugging at their own goals that they want to achieve. And at the end of the day, it's really sort of causing things like the box office to really suffer. So, I hope that they figure it out, because I do think you're right. I do think that maybe there's a part of them that doesn't want to admit that the idea of what they did was a failure, or at least the new model or the plan that they had was a failure that happened under Bob Chapek's rule. But I do think that there's got to be something drastically different done. But we'll see. So I do think there's a little bit of what Bob Iger is saying is true. But I do think that there's a missing piece that they're missing out on or not fully understanding.
Yeah.
But that's just us as fans on the outside looking in.
Exactly.
Bob, if you need some advice, Bob, pick up the phone, man. Give me a call. We'll help you out there a little bit. But the other side of things is, and I think this is something that we can probably agree on, is that their approach to Marvel, I think, is an interesting one in the sense of, let's reduce the output. We've clearly have stretched Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios very thin. Not enough maybe cooks in the kitchen at this point, or chefs in the kitchen at this point. And people are just creating stuff, and it's not necessarily fulfilling the quality that I think we had in the first three phases. Not to say that everything was knockout and the banger in the phases leading up to phase 3, but it definitely feels a little bit more watered down. And so Bob Iger let us know that when it comes to 2025, we have a very diminished slate for some of their movies. So let's go ahead and bring this up. One of the movies that was not mentioned in this call, according to Collider, is Thunderbolts. The release date may be delayed as Bob Iger confirms the Disney's 2025 slate. It goes on to say, there's more troubling news from Marvel, as it sounds like their anti-hero ensemble Thunderbolts appears to have been taken off of Disney's theatrical slate for 2025 after Disney's chief Bob Iger revealed the films the House of Mouse is sending to theaters next year. Iger was speaking at an earnings call and announced the number of films would be released in those 12 months for 2025. He mentioned Captain America, Brave New World, Fantastic Four, Elio, Zootopia 2, and Avatar 3. And it says, with no room for Thunderbolts, which had been slated originally for summer of 2025. The news probably shouldn't come as a surprise. The film is due to begin shooting in spring of this year, but a spat of casting changes have already occurred due to the countless delays in production, partly due to last year's lengthy writers and actors strike. The film lost both Ayo Edebiri, she was in fact replaced, as well as Stephen Yeun in the role of Sentry, with a replacement yet to be announced, although Lewis Pullman has been heavily linked with the casting in the time since. And I talked about this last week, Stewart, Ayo Edebiri leaving with her replacement Geraldine Viswanathan coming in. And the one thing that I said during that time was, man, first off, you literally just had Ayo and Steven come off of these huge Emmy wins for their work in, I think, in Bear along with Beef, if I'm not mistaken. So the idea of you immediately have lost this talent attached to your movie has got to hurt. And look, I'm sure Geraldine and I'm sure Lewis that's coming in as Sentry, I'm sure they'll probably hold their own. But the fact that you have lost Emmy winners in this role, it's got to hurt. And then it's also got to push back your production. And I think even I said then, I don't think this movie is going to be making its release date. And the fact that Bob Iger has officially announced it's not even on his slate for 2025 right now, it seems as though MCU might be going back to its tradition of maybe 2 to 3 movies a year. And he's officially, as of right now, only announced Captain America, Brave New World, which I believe is already wrapped and ready to go, and Fantastic Four, which is kind of surprising considering the fact that we have yet to even have an official cast announced. Although I do believe filming is set to go ahead and begin here within a couple of months. I feel like the turnaround for Fantastic Four is going to have to be a pretty quick one. But those seem like those are the layups right now. And I don't think that this means Thunderbolts is canceled. I just think that this means this is something that either Bob Iger has not announced for like a late 2025, but even him mentioning Avatar 3 lets me know like he's already thinking like holiday 2025, right? So the idea of Thunderbolts slipping into 2025, I think, is non-existent. I do think that we still get that movie, but in 2026, as I recently read, Florence Pugh even mentioned, yes, we're going to be going to Atlanta here within a couple of weeks and start filming rather soon. So she certainly still plans on having that on the docket, but a little bit of a bummer when it comes to Thunderbolts being pushed. How do you like this strategy? Do you think that this will allow MCU to kind of get back on its feet? What are your thoughts about the 2025 MCU slate?
I think it's very smart to slow down a bit. I think, I think I mentioned this before. Like one of the issues was, releasing way too much all at once. And I think that worked when we were starved for Marvel content, like back in 2020, 2021. So, releasing all the shows and then all these movies, I think, it wasn't a problem back then, but now it kind of is because now we have so many shows, so many movies to keep up with. So I think slowing down is a smart move financially and also a good way to kind of, fight against the superhero fatigue, which I know a lot of people want to say doesn't exist, but it kind of does, for casual audiences. I'm not trying to say that everyone who doesn't want to go see a Marvel movie has superhero fatigue. I'm just saying that it does exist. So I think slowing down is a very, very smart move on their part, and maybe focusing on, I think like just from Thunderbolts, I think one problem that they're going with is that they have like movies in mind of when they want to release them before they have a script ready. And I think one thing Marvel should also try to do is rather than, because I get that, because they're all connected, they have to be planned out in order to make sure continuity makes sense and all that. So I get that. But I do think that when it comes to the overall arc, I don't think it matters too much how you set it up as long as it's not part of the main plot of the solo films, which I don't think I don't think like the main Avengers movie should be part of a solo film. I think it should be an afterthought, basically. So I think that what Marvel should shift to is doing movies based on what scripts are ready first, what script is ready to go. And I think like they should also, they should slow down on promising movies coming out at a certain release date, because all you're gonna do one of two things. You're gonna either rush a really bad production because it's been rushed, or you're going to lie to your fans because the production didn't go as well as you were hoping. So I think kind of shifting to less movies is a smart first step. I think the next step should be waiting until a script is ready before pushing a release date.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I would agree. There is and I think we've brought this up before. There is an element of, I think, because you've put so much out there, the casual viewer having to do more homework now, just to go into watching an MCU film. And I think where the fault comes in, and again, this is just me. I don't know if I've heard other people comment on this. Is the idea of like, I think your main story should just be in the movies. Have your script, any big sort of arcs that you have that are must watch, must see in order to understand the story, has got to be in just your movies alone. If you want to create Disney Plus series, I think that those just have to be like a standalone adventures type of thing, because I do think that there's something about when you get to the movies, if Moon Knight pops up, what the hell, how are you going to introduce him in Moon Knight when you literally just had a whole series introducing him to the audience? And so I do think there's got to be a level of creating some unique origin stories that go into like whatever Moon Knight or Miss Marvel winds up popping up in again. And again, while I enjoyed the Marvels, I do think there's like a whole missing aspect of who Kamala Khan is that's not really introduced in that film. And so, now you got to go and watch the, Miss Marvel on Disney Plus in order to understand fully what's going on. Same thing with Tiana Paris that wound up playing Monica. The idea of like, look, you almost have to watch WandaVision to fully comprehend who she is and things like that, instead of just make it a, oh, we'll talk about that later kind of moment in the movie. And so I do think that their trajectory, like if you're going to do that, just make Miss Marvel a movie, right? Or make Moon Knight an actual movie, and introduce us to some really great original origin story films that are well thought out and well planned. And so I do hope that they go back to the drawing board a little bit and kind of figure that out. And I think it also brings into question the idea of like, with them doing this, what movies now that might have been announced before will we maybe not get, or maybe not necessarily not get anymore, but maybe at some point in time they may rethink how it's presented to us. So like, for instance, I thought this was a pretty interesting article from Screen Rant. They posted this within the past 2 days or so. It says MCU projects most in danger of never happening in Marvel's new release plan. And I find that interesting because I do think some of these projects are already in development. So the idea of them not happening, I don't know if that's a possibility anymore, but series, and they bring up Agatha, Darkhold Diaries. I mean, look, we literally just posted a featurette of Agatha filming, release date late 2024. That's supposed to be dropping here.
That's like the third time they've changed the title.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was Darkhold Diaries, Agatha Harkness. I don't remember what all of
I think the first one was just called House of Agatha, right?
Something like that. Yeah. They have Thunderbolts on here. I think this is happening. I feel like from what I've read, I think Captain America 4 almost naturally leads into a Thunderbolts movie. So I do think that's almost a given. Ironheart has been wrapped. That sets the projected release date is September of 2025. I thought that there was I thought this project might actually be turned into a movie at some point in time, but I don't even know if that's happening anymore. Wonder Man's been in production. They just had a tragic event happen on set. I think one of their stuntmen or one of their riggers wind up dying on set recently. Rest in peace to that gentleman that passed away. I'm almost like, hey, if I'm Wonder Man, let's just shut down production at this point. Who knows? No current release date set for that. We have Armor Wars that, if you recall, Stewart, was going to be going from series and now is officially turned into a movie. I think it's going to be led by Don Cheadle. I think that's something that you have to release. I think that's something that we'll still continue to get. They've got Avengers Kang Dynasty, which looks like that might be revamped. That was supposed to drop May 1st of 2026. And if you're telling me that when it comes to MCU, we're only going to get Captain America 4 and Fantastic Four in 2025, the idea of a Kang Dynasty releasing in 2026 or a new Avenger film, it's like, what else is supposed to fit between that time period leading into that movie, right? So is there potential that gets pushed back even further? Vision Quest, at this point, I'm like, bro, I don't even know where Vision's been. Do we have to have this series? Like, I think this one is probably going to get canceled or cut at its knees.
I don't even think I want a Vision Quest, honestly.
Yeah. Look, I know a lot of people like Blade, but goddamn, we've been waiting for Blade how long now? I think they finally have a writer and a director now attached, but it's like, where does Blade fit into all of this, right?
And okay, and this is not me insulting the character of Blade at all. He's super fucking badass, but how hard can it be to write a Blade movie? I can't imagine that being difficult to make. Like, that's got to be one of the easier, like, Marvel projects to go with. A vampire movie. There are so many fun directions you can take with that.
The Untitled Okoye series. Yeah, I don't know when this is even supposed to happen, if that's something that Bob Iger even wants to tackle anymore. And they even have Marvel Zombies on here. I think animated might be safe. I think that might be something that might be safe with. But I just think it just goes to show, like, so many projects that the MCU certainly still has that it's like, are any of these going to see the light of day? A lot of these have already been filmed, if I'm not mistaken. So I do think that they have the opportunity to certainly still be released. But I think Thunderbolts is safe. I think Armor Wars is safe. And I think maybe the next Avengers film is safe. And outside of that, I think that's probably all that we're going to get. Um, and maybe a couple of the television series like Agatha. I can see Agatha, Ironheart, and what was the other one on that list? I can't remember. I can see those continuing to go through, but it's like, man, this is 2025 is going to be a very important year for Marvel going forward, I think, Stewart.
It's also going to be an important year for DC because it's when they're debuting, Superman Legacy. Actually, people in the comments, let us know, what do you think is going to do better at the box office? Deadpool 3, which is currently slated for 2025, or Superman Legacy, also slated for 2025? I'm curious to hear what you guys think.
When it comes to 2025 for the MCU, first off, I'm glad that we're getting the Captain America movie. I'm glad that that's finally going to be dropping. I've been getting kind of pumped for that, especially based off of Harrison Ford's going to be in there. We got ourselves a brand new Sam Wilson Captain America suit. I believe the kid Danny from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think we're going to get ourselves a brand new Falcon also to work alongside Captain America. And I think, again, I do think that's going to be a really big proper buildup for Thunderbolts eventually to be released. Now, as far as Fantastic Four, we'll see if that makes the cut in 2025. I do think it feels like a little bit of a stretch for me, Stewart, that you want this movie to release in like a year and a half based off of just what Fantastic Four is. And when I think of Fantastic Four, I do think of like heavy CGI and special effects and heavy post-production. So it does make me wonder how far ahead, like how far along, I should say, pre-production's already been for Fantastic Four that we maybe not even be aware of right now. But I do think you make a good point. Marvel and DC are going to have very important 2025s. Will both of these movies certainly do well at the box office? I like the idea of 2 Marvel films a year. Honestly, I think there's a part of me that's like, more please, but we've seen that already. So if they have the time to go back to the drawing board, make sure a lot of these projects are tight when it comes to their storytelling, then maybe we have an opportunity here for something really special. Sharp says that is a hard question, Stewart. I will say Deadpool 3.
Deadpool 3. Okay, cool.
What was your question, Stewart?
Oh, my question is what you think will be financially more successful between Deadpool 3 and Superman Legacy.
I'll say Deadpool 3.
Okay.
I think because you have such heavy hitters in Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. Everybody loves fucking Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. He's coming off his last appearance of being Logan. Sean Levy's coming back to direct, and I think him and Ryan Reynolds make some great movies together. I think the implication of what this can mean for the MCU is pretty heavy. So I do think that Deadpool 3 will do better at the box office, because I think for me, Superman Legacy, while it will be separated from the DCEU, I still think that there might be a little bit of a stench left over. But I do think there will be a lot of curiosity. Like, my biggest concern is, I think if Superman Legacy can make $400-500 million, I think that's a success for DCU. Even though they're probably hoping it's like $700 million or like almost $1 billion, I don't think they should have their mindset towards that. I think if Superman Legacy comes in at $400-500 million, I think you take that as a success based off of just what they've done before in the past with some of their films, and continue to run with it and just continue to focus on producing good movies. But I do think that something like Deadpool 3 can maybe even get close to Guardians of the Galaxy 3 level numbers, like 700 million, maybe even 800 million.
I'm going to put my money on Superman Legacy just to be different, but I also, do think I think the one thing Superman Legacy has going for it against Deadpool 3 is that as big as I'm much as I'm sure everyone is so excited to see Deadpool as part of the MCU, I think there's also that not just the superhero fatigue, but also the multiverse fatigue is also starting to kick in. And because Deadpool 3 is undoubtedly going to involve the multiverse, it may have that going against it. But it can go either way. I'm just gonna put my money on Superman, so we'll see.
I get you. Yeah. Tony Robinson says he does believe Superman Legacy has a more of an uphill battle to win back the fans. I
Mhm.
do agree with that to a certain extent, and I will agree with you too. The multiverse could probably drag down Deadpool, but I am hoping that even if it is a multiversal movie, it's not as chaotic as that of like Multiverse of Madness. That
Oh yeah,
they
no.
that they utilize the multiverse in a very tight window of storytelling. And if you could literally just focus on sort of the Fox Marvel universe, and kind of mix that in with our current MCU stuff, I think something like that might be kind of fun. So we'll see. We'll see how that winds up turning out. But let us know your guys' thoughts with the new direction here for Disney along with the MCU. How do you feel about the idea of 2 MCU films for 2025? Is Captain America 4 Brave New World something you're looking forward to along with Fantastic Four? Let us know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. And with that, Stuart, let's move on to our next topic, shall we?
Yes.
As we will be getting into the world of DCU, just talking about the uphill battle that DCU certainly has in store for it. Look, when it comes to James Gunn and his vision, I'm pretty intrigued. I'm pretty fascinated. I've really loved the casting choices that he's had so far when it comes to Superman Legacy. I haven't even doubted majority of his casting choices, quite honestly. We just wind up getting ourselves a brand new Supergirl in Millie Alcock. That's going to be hopefully popping up in Superman Legacy or at least another DCU movie before her Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow film. So I think the intrigue continues to build. I still think that there's some worry that fans have out there when it comes to James Gunn, but I've seen enough from James Gunn to be able to see what he's capable of. And I think the idea of something like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 making like $700-800 million at the box office, to me, just shows me how good of a filmmaker that he certainly is. There are a lot more characters to certainly be fleshed out in this world. Well, we have already one Green Lantern that's going to be played by Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. There are plenty other Green Lanterns that we certainly have to fill the shoes of. No announcement yet for who a Hal Jordan is, but the idea of a John Stewart Green Lantern has kind of picked up some steam over the past couple of weeks as we've had a couple of actors kind of throw their names in the hat already. And one name has surfaced this week, Stuart, that I'm really intrigued in. I was very impressed with him in the Black Adam movie, Hawkman, played by Aldis Hodge. He had the opportunity this week to go ahead and sit down with comicbook.com and give a pretty interesting interview here where it seems like he's very much open to the idea of continuing on this legacy. Let me see if I can bring this up here too. They're going to hit me with another ad. We'll see. But this comes to us from comicbook.com. Aldis Hodge is ready to be Green Lantern John Stewart in the new DCU. Let me go ahead and bring this up here. It says, through decades of comics, John Stewart Green Lantern has become a vital part of the DC's superhero lexicon. In recent years, John Stewart has also thrived in animation, with Black Adam star Aldis Hodge voicing the character in the DC animated movie Green Lantern Beware My Power, and subsequently portraying the character in the ongoing Crisis on Infinite Earths 3-part animated movie. While speaking with comicbook.com about his work in the upcoming movie Marmalade, Hodge addressed the possibility of reprising his role of John Stewart in live action in the upcoming Max exclusive streaming series Lantern or otherwise. Let's go ahead and dive into what he had to say about this. He says, look, I'm open for whatever, Hodge explained in our interview. He says, I would love to live to live out the rest of the legacy of Hawkman because we had some amazing plans for him, but also with Jon Stewart in sort of live action capacity. I mean, I've voiced Jon Stewart in the animated space for years now, a few years. Phil Lamar passed the baton. Shout out to Phil because I'm a big fan of his work. But if that became a film adaptation, absolutely. I mean, that was one of my dreams growing up, was to be Jon Stewart in live action. So yeah. And for those of you who are wondering, when it comes to the Lantern series, this was announced in the early part of 2023 for James Gunn, saying that a live action Lantern series was going to star Jon Stewart along with his predecessor, Hal Jordan. Nathan Fillion has already been cast as Guy Gardner. But the idea for Lanterns, they say Lanterns leads into the overall story that we're telling throughout the different movies and television shows. We find this ancient horror on Earth, and these guys are basically super cops on precinct Earth. So I definitely do feel like true detective vibes in here when he talks about this, but it also goes to show you just the level of importance that Lanterns is going to have, as Lanterns is really going to go ahead and give the overall sort of story arc for their upcoming different movies and television shows. But Aldis Hodge is definitely showing some level of interest in this one, Stuart. And if I could be quite frank with you, man, I was so impressed with this guy. So impressed with him as Hawkman. You know, while I enjoyed Black Adam for what it was, right? I'd never expected an Oscar winning movie. You tell me The Rock is playing Black Adam. Look, I'm just looking for some action and watching this dude Hulk out and smash some people, okay? And that's exactly what I wind up getting. Not the strongest story, not the strongest character arc, but the saving grace to me for Black Adam was the Justice Society of America. Most importantly, Aldis Hodge as Hawkman. I thought he did a stellar performance in that role. Really got me wanting to see more of Hawkman, in the sense of when James Gunn announced the DCU, I was like, please keep Aldis Hodge as Hawkman. Can we please keep the JSA together as we saw in this movie? That doesn't necessarily seem to be the case, but James Gunn has been open to the idea of taking some of those returning characters and certainly bringing them back. James Gunn has also mentioned the idea that, look, when it comes to some of these animated films, I really like the idea of taking some of those voice actors and eventually allowing them to sort of play their role in live action. Now, clearly that didn't happen when it comes to Supergirl, as Meg Donnelly did not win the role for being Supergirl in the movie. But I have faith that Aldis Hodge is so strong of an actor that his performance in Hawkman was so incredibly good that the idea of him playing Jon Stewart for me would be almost a layup for James Gunn if he wanted to go ahead and cast this guy. There was another gentleman that recently threw his name in the hat. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, from the popular series. What is it? This is Us or something like that. I think that's what it was. I can't remember. Stuart, see if you can find the other gentleman's name that recently talked about being Jon Stewart. But I think Aldis Hodge can really tap into this guy. He's already, like he mentioned, has done the voice for Jon Stewart on several occasions when it comes to animated series. I think he's got the great look. I think this guy could definitely perform as like a soldier turned Green Lantern Corps sort of precinct cop. And so I think this is something that would be right up his alley. Out of all the names that I've seen so far, Aldis, I think, has been the strongest one so far. Some people were probably maybe even sort of the gentleman that played Green Lantern in the Zack Snyder extended cut. He got a brief opportunity towards the end to kind of showcase himself, but I think that window might be closed for him, and I would probably want to go with a little bit more recognizable names. So I think for me, Aldis Hodge right now is at the top of my list, unless James Gunn has some sort of like casting call announcement. I don't even know if they've done casting for this character as of yet, but I hope James Gunn is definitely listening and checking out some of these interviews, because I do think Aldis Hodge can certainly deliver, Stuart. So if he's my if there was a short list, he would definitely be at the top of it for me, Stuart. But what about you? How do you feel about the idea of Aldis Hodge as Green Lantern? Do you think he'll fit that role perfectly, or do you have maybe somebody else in mind?
I loved him in Black Adam, even though I'm not the biggest fan of that movie. I think that he did an incredible job in it, and I also I haven't watched. Let me double check to make sure I'm naming the correct movies. Yes, okay, cool. So I haven't seen Green Lantern Beware My Power, but I did watch Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. And even though he doesn't play a big role in it or anything, I do get like a somewhat of a sense of like kind of the like his take on John Stewart. And I do think it is one that would work really well in live action. Even if he wanted to do like a different approach to the character in live action than he does in the animated series, I still think, he definitely he's an actor that has that flexibility. The main thing that got me really excited about his whole comment on playing John Stewart is that he gave a shout out to Phil LaMarr, who of course voiced acted John Stewart on the Justice League animated series, one of my favorite shows to watch growing up. And he's basically, just in the same exact way that whenever I read a Batman comic book, Kevin Conroy's voice is, the voice that goes into my head when I'm reading dialogue from Batman. And, same with the Joker. It's like, it's always going to be Mark Hamill's voice when I read dialogue for the Joker. And now when it comes to John Stewart's Green Lantern, every time I see John Stewart's Green Lantern in a comic book, which isn't as often as it used to be, admittingly, but, John, that voice, Phil LaMarr's voice, is the John Stewart Green Lantern voice in my head that I read. So I love that he gave a shout out to Phil LaMarr, and it shows that he also does know a bit about the animated Justice League series. I'm not sure if he's a fan of it or not, or if he's just seen like an episode here or there. But regardless, he knows, he knows like the kind of iconic thing that fans would look for when it comes to the characters. So I think that him as Green Lantern has a bunch of things that would work about it. I personally would love to see this. He wouldn't, I don't know if he'd be my number one choice, but he would definitely be up there for me.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying there. Hopefully when more names come out, like right now, I just don't know if I have somebody like picked out in mind that I'm like, I think he would be absolutely perfect for this role. But out of all the people that have thrown their name in the hat, I think Aldis is probably the strongest that really kind of comes to mind, because I do think I don't want to say that, and this might seem rude, but I feel like sometimes when we think about um superheroes, especially black superheroes, I think sometimes we just tend to recycle black actors' names, that we've seen before, like Michael B. Jordan. I want to see Michael. Like this dude is in everything already, all right? Like I do want to give other people opportunities, sort of thing. The other gentleman that threw his name in the hat was Sterling K. Brown. He had thrown his name out into the opportunity to be John Stewart also. And while I do enjoy his performances, I just think Aldis Hodge is a stronger actor, or at least that I think he can definitely deliver, especially when he's familiar with the John Stewart character. And I love the fact that you brought up what he stated about Phil LaMarr passing him the baton. I do think that goes a really long way of knowing who came before you, appreciating who came before you, and understanding that he finds value in knowing that somebody trusts him with this role. And I think because Aldis has done it for so long now, I do think that there's an understanding to the John Stewart character that he will certainly bring over into live action if something like that were to happen. And again, coming fresh off of what he was able to do with Hawkman, and really just being a scene stealer, if you ask me, in Black Adam, I think that type of gravitas on screen, I think could really go a long way, especially if you can find a great sort of counter for him to play opposite on a Lantern series. So whoever they might wind up getting for Hal Jordan. So again, Aldis Hodge is not cast, but he's at least throwing his name out there. And again, if I've got to pick between Aldis Hodge or Sterling K. Brown or anybody else, so far, I think Aldis, I think for me personally, would be the strongest one. But how have you liked James Gunn's casting so far in general?
In general, so far, there isn't a single casting he did that I disagree with. Although, now that you bring up Sterling K. Brown, I will say that I do think he also could have made a really good Mr. Terrific. Not that I have anything against the actor they chose. I think he's going to do a great job, but I also think that thinking of Sterling K. Brown and like different like roles that I think he would work really well in, that would definitely be one of them.
I can dig that. I could definitely dig that. Outside of, I'm trying to think of where else I've seen the gentleman that's playing Mr. Terrific. I've seen him in the Peacemaker series, if I'm not mistaken, and he also played the High Evolutionary in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that's the same gentleman.
Wait, is it? I thought it was
I believe so.
Hang on.
Oh no. Yeah. You're right. I'm thinking of somebody completely different. No, this is the guy. Was he X-Men First Class? Was that the guy?
Yes, he was. Yeah, that's right. He was in X-Men First Class.
I'm sorry, I was getting my actors mixed up. Yeah, he was in X-Men First Class.
What I knew him from. There was one movie that he was in. Maybe it was just X-Men. Never mind.
So yeah, I will be interested to see how he plays in that role. I think Homeboy's been in the gym getting kind of buff for Mr. Terrific. So we'll see how he performs that role, because I don't really know too much about him. So I guess out of all the James Gunn casting, maybe that's probably one that I would have questions about. But again, I don't know what James Gunn's vision for Mr. Terrific is, so definitely going to go ahead and give this guy an opportunity and a shot. But the idea of Sterling K. Brown is an interesting one for sure.
Okay, I just realized where it was that I had seen him, and it was literally just a couple days ago too. So as a joke, some of my coworkers and I went to go to a late round of Twilight, which I hadn't seen since middle school, and oh boy, I thought watching it as an adult, I might have a new appreciation for it. No, it was actually harder to get through. The baseball scene was cool though. But that being said, he was one of the vampires that were that were in the movie. One of like the group of 3 vampires that like were passing through town.
He's sparkling, wasn't he? Wasn't a sparkling one?
What was his name? Hang on.
I can't remember. Real quick before we move on, while you look that up, shout out to Blossom coming through with the super chat and supporting this channel. Thank you so much, Blossom. She says, John Stewart, holy macaroli manoli. So cool. Yeah, I'm really eager to see a John Stewart finally on the big screen. We got robbed out of it from the Justice League movies. Shout out for Zack Snyder for at least trying to get a John Stewart in there, but it just never came to fruition and overall. But I think John Stewart on the big screen or even the small screen to start off is certainly long awaited for sure. And again, guys, listen. If you do want to support the channel, Super Chats is certainly a great way to do it. I think they also have like a super stickers section that you can go ahead and drop to. All the proceeds go to building our production quality, getting some new graphics designs, opportunities to go to other conventions and provide coverage for the channel. So any help definitely does go a long way. We are truly only supported by you guys at the end of the day. We have no sort of outside sponsors or anything like that. It's really just sort of fan supported. So if you like our content, if you want to help us out even more monetarily, Super Chats is certainly a great way to do that. And if you can't support us monetarily, I know things are tight. Inflation don't help nobody right now. A like button, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell, sharing our videos, all of that certainly does go a long way. But thank you so much, Blossom. Usually when we get super chats, those will be the first comments that we dive into when we see them to give you the opportunity to have your time to shine on the screen. So thank you so much, Blossom. We really appreciate it. And our excitement level for John Stewart is through the roof also.
How funny would be if it was if the Lanterns was a period piece taking place in the early 2000s, and so therefore you had him on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart interviewing Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Who else we got? Sharp is in here today. He says, need my boy Jon Stewart. Yeah, we definitely do. Hoping we get some more news on that and sooner rather than later. Johnny in the house. What's up, Johnny? He says, hey, Adam, sorry I'm late to the party, dude. Also, just heard the live action Danny Phantom is officially moving forward, and they are finding a director right now. Yeah, I was seeing some I was seeing some people already trying to fan cast Tom Holland as Danny Phantom.
No,
and I'm like, no,
he's
please.
old now.
I know he still looks like he's 12, guys, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Danny Phantom seemingly is moving forward. What's up, Frankie? Frankie in the house too. Listen, guys, if you're in the live chat, especially if you're watching us live, hit that like button, man. It really does go a long way. It takes 2 seconds out of your time. He says, "Hello, Adam and Stewart. I think that both Deadpool and Superman Legacy will do well. I agree with you. I think that Superman Legacy has a curiosity component and will attract more families along with comic fans. And I think there's and I think there is something to that, especially if we get like a first look, if we get like a first teaser trailer that kind of embraces the idea of it being a family friendly movie, maybe not as dark and dreary as that of like a Man of Steel. Like if the presentation is one that people are like, this is the Superman that I remember, that I can connect with, then I do think first impressions will really, really go a long way. So I would agree with you there, Frankie. He says, and especially if Henry Cavill, whom I love as Superman, comes out in a public way in support of the new film and a new Superman, that would boost things for Legacy. I agree with you there too. And I think Henry Cavill is that dude. I think he is that type of dude. And I think he said it before, like, look, James Gunn and them, they're just going to be going in a different direction. Maybe I'll work with them in the future, but I would agree with you. I think Henry Cavill would be that type of guy. It's almost like a presidential candidate, like running for office, and he loses and he's like, I'm going to put my support behind. So, and it helps the other person out. Like, that's what I feel like when it comes to Henry Cavill possibly doing that for Superman. I do think getting that Henry Cavill rub for all the Cavill fans that might be kind of, a little bit iffy about this new Superman, I think will really go a long way. And mind you, David Cornsweet, homeboy, is in the gym. I mean, if you've seen him, they've been covering up with like big oversized sweatpants and sweatshirts and stuff. You can still see that man bulging through his workout gear. I mean, I think the transformation for David is going to be astounding, and I think people are going to fall in line with it for sure.
Definitely.
Sharp says, loved him as Black Adam. I enjoyed the movie for what it was. My only dislike was the kid. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people did not care about that kid in Black Adam. Marcelino says, again, Deadpool 3 will be released in 2024, while Superman Legacy will be releasing in 2025. Yeah, we're fully aware. We're just comparing the idea of what we think is going to be making more at the box office. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to Aldis Hodge throwing his name into the ring for John Stewart Green Lantern. Were you impressed with him as Hawkman enough to want to see him as John Stewart? And do you think that's a really great casting, or do you have somebody else in mind for that role? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below.
What's funny is the kid from Black Adam was also in Legends of Tomorrow, playing a different, playing what was it? I think he was a young version of Barad, if I'm not mistaken. This was like season 3, so it was a while ago. But what's funny is, like, technically his relationship to Black Adam is similar, because he's the brother of the character who in the comic books is known as Isis, and she's the wife of Black Adam. But in this, it's he plays basically just a kid who's a super Black Adam fan. But yeah, either way, that relationship connection is kind of technically there between both the movie universe and the show universe.
That's pretty trippy how they make that work.
Yeah.
All right, guys, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and transition into more television and movies for you guys outside of the comic book genre. Next up, Game of Thrones is back in the news, ladies and gentlemen. We got some updates in regards to another potential spinoff that's coming to us from Game of Thrones. And I do think there should be a disclaimer here, in the sense that, we have reported the idea that when it comes to Game of Thrones, there are a lot of ideas that have been thrown out that we've reported. Constant spinoffs that are very much in sort of early development. Maybe they're just simply ideas, but it does give us the impression that HBO Max is definitely looking at continuing to expand this franchise. And while there are a lot of ideas thrown out and things in early development, I think we also have to understand not every one of those things have been greenlit or have moved on to official orders. So the idea that this upcoming spinoff that we're going to talk about now has a writer attached to it, I think does go to showcase how far along this development certainly is, and the possibility of this really coming to fruition. So let's go ahead and dive into this article here, Stuart. as this one comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. Again, I know there's been countless sort of spin-off things that we've talked about in development, but I do think that this article will also highlight what is actually coming to HBO Max down the line, and what is still potentially just we'll wait and see. But one of those things that is
Um,
gaining momentum.
so sorry, I will be keep reading the article. I'll
Gotcha.
continue to listen, but I will be right back. I'm
Go
sorry.
for it. No problem. So when it comes to, I'll go ahead and remove him for right now, and I'll bring him back in when he comes in. So one that's really gaining momentum right now, according to Hollywood Reporter, is Game of Thrones Aegon's Conquest spinoff in the works from the Batman Part 2 writer. This is an exclusive report saying there's another Thrones project in development, this time from writer Mattson Tomlin. I think the idea that they have such a well-recognized writer, I think really does go a long way for this being maybe one of their next logical steps. But let's go ahead and break this down. It says the company is actively heating up its long in discussion Aegon's Conquest idea. HBO is partnering with Mattson Tomlin as in-demand scribe who did uncredited work on Matt Reeves' The Batman and is co-writing its upcoming sequel, The Batman Part 2. He also wrote the Keanu Reeves action comic book adaptation Berserker and an animated Terminator series, which is also show running for Netflix. Aegon's Conquest is basically a direct prequel to the hit House of the Dragon, telling the story of the Targaryens' bloody and brutal conquest of Westeros. The story follows the invader Aegon Targaryen, who conquered the continent of Westeros with his sister wives, Rhaenys and Visenya, and their dragons. Aegon successfully unified 6 of the 7 kingdoms in just 2 years, with only Dorne able to successfully resist. It says one source described the project as taking a back to basics approach to George R.R. Martin's epic fantasy universe. Though considering the first series was sprawling and conquest and complex, it's unclear what back to basics means exactly when it comes to the Game of Thrones context. Variety previously reported Aegon's Conquest as an idea in discussion early last year. So it definitely has moved from that idea phase into, hey, this sounds like it's got some active development behind it now that we've got Mattson Tomlin as writer attached to it. It says since Throne concluded in 2019, there have been many prequels and one sequel idea put into development, and some are considered no longer active. Though HBO prefers not to say any option is completely off the table, as there's always a chance a once promising idea could redevelop under a different writer. The effort has spawned 2 greenlit shows. The one greenlit show, far as spinoff that we've already known about, House of the Dragon, which is set to launch its 2nd season. The second greenlit show that we've reported here on Hero Report, A Night of 7 Kingdoms, The Hedge Knight, which starts production this year and is based off of George R.R. Martin's Dunk and Egg novellas. So the Night of the 7 Kingdoms, the Hedge Knight, is a foregone conclusion. That is going to happen as it's set to go ahead and start production this year. So we will be getting ourselves a second Game of Thrones spinoff. And it seems as though now Aegon's Conquest seemingly might be the third, now that we wind up having a writer officially attached to this. So I do think this is a big win here. I think this really makes sense too, Stewart, in the sense that we're continuing to go further and further backwards here. Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and now possibly Aegon's Conquest. This is a story I'm really interested in, especially I think in House of the Dragon. Didn't they name one of their childs Aegon? I think after Aegon Targaryen, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, like I think Aegon's just a common name with the Targaryens because there was also actually I'll get to this like after you're done.
Oh yeah, no, you feel free to go ahead and talk about it, but it seems like this is definitely going to be more of a reality. So Game of Thrones continues to expand here. A third potential spinoff seems like this idea that happened last year is moving pretty far along with its production now with this writer. What are your thoughts on this being one of those spinoffs? Are you excited about it? Give us the lowdown on what you think about this series. I think you're probably more the Game of Thrones guy than I am in this. I don't know if you've read the books or not, but just let me know some of your thoughts about this.
No, I haven't read the books. All my knowledge from the expanded lore that has been established in the show comes from my girlfriend, who is a fan of the books. She reads all of them. But that all to be said. So Aegon the Conqueror is when you mentioned Aegon at the beginning of the article, I was like, oh, Aegon the Conqueror, which of course was who we had who I believe that was the one that they called the Mad King, and it was basically the one that you had right before the TV show Game of Thrones really kicks off. But now seeing that this is a different Aegon, it's the Aegon that was king before, you know, the events of the current Game of Thrones show, makes me realize, okay, we're going further back. We're exploring even more history that like has gotten mentioned. But one thing that's so awesome about the world of Game of Thrones, you know, there's the history that's talked about like in the books and from the characters, but then there's also the history of what actually happens, you know, and that ends up being a lot different. So things like this, for example, in history, it was in the Game of Thrones history, it was thought that the kids of I totally forgot her name, but the main character in the current Game of Thrones show, it was thought that her kids were bastards, but without anyone knowing for sure. Whereas in the show, we see no, it's definitely 100% for sure. They are not, you know, they are definitely bastard kids, you know, they don't even try to hide it. So things like that. And then there's other like small things where it's like the way they talk about history, you know, that they can be a lot more flexible on it, like as to what like actually happens, but you can see why historically it was written that way. And I think that's the kind of flexibility the world of Game of Thrones has. And I would love to see them doing that with another prequel. You know, even though we hear the story, we still don't have a full picture on what happened, you know, in that time period. And I think that with every type of prequel that you do with Game of Thrones, and that's why I think the idea of doing spin-off shows based on events that we hear about in the show or in the books is a really fun way to go with the writers. Because especially if the writers are fans of the shows and they really know exactly what history gets referenced, they have that flexibility of going, okay, this is what history says happens, but what if? And then you could say that, you know, you can come up with all these reasons of why a king would want history to have it written down that specific way. Am I making sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
I'm super intrigued in what you're talking about right now. I totally
Yeah.
get what you mean. Because I think you're right. They always say like history is written by the winners, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea that when we get to something like Game of Thrones, you know, we're told about all this lore sort of thing. But like you said, now that we're in House of Dragon, we're kind of seeing the truth about things. And who's to say what we're learning about in House of Dragon doesn't have some, I want to say, distorted history to it. But now, if we go even further back and see Aegon's conquest, the idea of really seeing how all this kind of transpired and came together, I think is going to be even more eye-opening and really help even build to what we see in something like House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, and allowing us to kind of even go back to those series and maybe see things even that much more differently. So I think you're definitely onto something in that regard, Stuart.
Oh, I didn't realize I was muted.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm super excited for this. I'm still kind of figuring out what the Hedge Knight is gonna be about. I didn't really follow the Duncan Egg novellas by George R. Martin. I probably have to read up on it. It's been a while, I think, since we've reported about that. But I think I don't know exactly when that will land in the timeline of everything. But anything Targaryen at this point, I'm ready. More dragons, if that's what that means. More bloodshed, more conquest. Give it to me, man. And I do think this is going to be right up their alley. Do you have any idea what this means by back? The article talked about this going back to the basics. And the article was like, I don't necessarily know what that means when it comes to Game of Thrones, since it's always so sprawling and epic. Do you think maybe that's what they're referring to? That it back to basics, just meaning sprawling and epic? Like, do you find the storytelling from Game of Thrones that much more different than House of the Dragon?
I think the only thing that's different is that House of the Dragon is a lot more easier to keep up with, because, you know, you're not following people throughout like the entire continent, you're following people like in a, group of kingdoms, basically. So I don't know what they mean by going back to basics, because I think House of Dragons did that exact thing that they're describing perfectly. Because to me, House of Dragons feels like early Game of Thrones.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I think maybe if we're talking about Aegon's conquest here and the idea of him, unifying 6 out of the 7 or 5 out of the 6, I can't remember what it said. I do feel like that means that maybe when they say back to the basics of Game of Thrones, then we are dealing with like kings and queens of different, you know, of different houses and stuff. So it maybe their back to the basics is that sprawling and epic aspect of like how the actions of one kingdom might affect the other, and battles between different houses and stuff, all around kind of Westeros. Whereas when I look at House of the Dragon, it very much feels like maybe like a family drama, focused on just one house and all the drama that goes into it. And so I'm wondering if that's what they're kind of referring to. Not that I feel like I'm missing out on, man, I wish we had that classic Game of Thrones. I love the level of storytelling that House of Dragon has given us, but the idea of maybe involving the whole continent in its actions and more sort of epic battles and things like that, maybe that's what they're kind of referring to here.
Oh boy, this means I may have to take notes and rewatch some episodes to understand what's going on.
Yeah, we may have to do that, man. We may have to do that. But some great news, I think, if you're a Game of Thrones fan. I think this is probably one of the stories that you're certainly really eager and looking forward to. And look, for those of you who do read the Game of Thrones novels, I am kind of curious as to if there's a story out there that you personally would like to certainly see told. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed for like a future Jon Snow series. I feel like that's kind of maybe taken a back seat to some of these. So I don't know how far. I don't think it's super far in development or anything like that. When it comes to like Kit Harington and whatnot. But while I don't mind the prequel aspect, because I do think that there is something very important about knowing your history to understand your present day. There is a part of me that would not mind eventually looking forward and seeing what happens after the events of the Game of Thrones original series. But we'll see. Like they said in the article, right? Some of these ideas that they have may take a backseat, and maybe one day they just get a really great idea from a powerful writer and then decide to move into developing some of these further down the line. But I like the idea of this series expanding. What about you?
Same here. Something I would love to see too, just in terms of expanding this world, a direct prequel. So this would have been like a couple years maybe before the show takes place. I can't remember the timeline exactly, but I would just love to see a movie about the Mad King, like basically rising to power, becoming mad just like Danny, and then being betrayed by his hand. I know a lot of the actors, you'd probably have to de-age them or cast younger actors, but I think that's something that a lot of fans would like. I don't think it would work as a show because I don't think it's a long story to tell, but I think it could work as a movie.
That would be interesting, right? I mean, look, we're seeing The Mandalorian go from a series to a big sort of event film in The Mandalorian and Grogu. That would be pretty interesting, because technically we've been introduced to the Mad King just at a very young age here in the House of Dragons.
Mm-hmm. I believe so, yeah.
So, if anything, I wouldn't mind seeing what his reign is like as far as on a movie screen. So we'll see if that's something that the trajectory that they have. I will just want to say this real quick. I have no belief that George R.R. Martin's going to finish his books, man.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think he's just working so well behind the scenes right now and developing a lot of this content that's going forward. I will say I am very much appreciative that they have him as heavily involved as they certainly do, because I think that's certainly what helps a lot of these series transition from book adaptations into live action be as successful as they are. But the more and more these spin-offs that get announced and seeing how far along they're developed, I'm just thinking, does this man even have time? Like, if this man did not have time to finish his books before, what makes me think that he has time to finish these books now? And I feel like every year we get that announcement, right, from George R.R. Martin. I'm working on it, y'all. It'll be done this year.
Mm-hmm.
Where's it been, man? Where's it been? So I don't know. If you have hope for it still, God be with you. I was like, God, bless your heart, but I just don't think it's happening. What do you think, Stu? You think George R. R. Martin will ever finish his story?
Uh I think that Berserk will conclude before Game of Thrones does. Anyone who knows some of the behind the scenes stuff currently going on with Berserk will get what I mean there. But yeah, I think it will eventually be done, because it does sound like he is actually done with the book. It's now just about getting it published. And
Gotcha.
then also, I'm sure he probably wants to tune it up a bit. So I'm sure that'll take like another 2 years. But I do think, eventually it will be out, and that I don't know. I hate bringing this up because I don't like talking about celebrities as if they're not the important part of the art that comes from them. But if something were to happen to George R. R. Martin, I do think that he does have people that work with him on the series that would know exactly what his vision would be and how to conclude it. Basically, just like with the manga series Berserk.
Marcelo says some say that in the near future, once Martin finishes his books, they should do an animation reboot and have it be more faithful to the books. Plus, it will help save money rather than doing live action. That would be pretty interesting. I would not mind an animated Game of Thrones. I don't know if I mean, maybe a reboot might happen down the line, but just the idea of a animated anything Game of Thrones, I think would be pretty cool if they ever wanted to tackle another tale that they feel might be just too vast for them to do live action. Right now, for me, George R. R. Martin is on that Cody Rhodes storyline. Finish the story.
Yeah.
All right. Finish your story, bro. So we'll see how that turns out. But guys, look, Game of Thrones, a new spinoff. Aegon's Conquest finds a writer, and the Batman 2 writer, Mattson Tomlin. How do you feel about it? Let us know your thoughts down below. And with that, guys, let's move on to our next topic. This one we'll probably kind of breeze through, but I wanted to give you guys an update because, look, anytime Ryan Coogler's in the news, anytime Michael B. Jordan's in the news, we pay attention to it, but especially when it's a collaboration between Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, we got to give you the news and the update, as there have been stories and talks about the idea that they have a brand new movie in mind. While they have been very much tight-lipped in regards to what it is, there are some rumors about it potentially being a period piece surrounding the concept of vampires. Now, that alone immediately intrigues me, especially coming off of some of the things that we've seen Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan do before. Fruitvale Station, Creed, even Black Panther together. So the idea that they're really taking a stab at something different is pretty fascinating. The question has been, who's going to pick up this particular project? And this week, it seems like we have a winner here. So let's go ahead and bring this up here. This one actually comes to us from Deadline.com, saying Warner Brothers lands the Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan package following the heated bidding war. My only concern right now, Stewart, is that this movie does not get canceled for a tax write-off when it comes to Warner Brothers and what they've been doing lately. But this is an exclusive. It says, in a highly competitive situation, Warner Brothers has landed a deal with writer, director, and producer Ryan Coogler and star Michael B. Jordan for an untitled new movie based on an original script by Coogler. So all you original movie fans out there, this might be right up your alley. It says the project reunites Coogler and Jordan, who have collaborated on Creed and Black Panther franchise and first made their work together in Fruitvale Station. It says this also marks the second project of Coogler and Jordan that Warner Brothers have championed, follow their green light of Creed 3 during their time at MGM. Coogler will produce a new film through their production company. It says not much is known about the film other than it is a period genre pick, and production is expected to start in April. So it's not that far away from actually kind of getting into cameras. So it looks like they've got themselves a pretty solid script that everybody is very much looking forward to. So, yeah, I mean, Stuart, do you believe the idea that, first off, the idea that it's a period genre pick makes me feel like, is this like a classic like 1800s London setting of like vampires or something. Like I think that would be first off, I think that'd just be really cool. The idea of like black vampires during that time period. Like I think if anybody can knock that out of the park, is definitely Ryan Coogler. That really fascinates me. But again, I'm going off on the vampire aspect of it that has not been confirmed. But it seems like the period aspect of least of this being a period piece seems very much like it's continuing to gain some leverage here. Are you excited for this team up again?
Yeah. Like you said, anytime they're working together, they always produce something really incredible. So, and I love vampires, as you know, I love horror. And yeah, if it's a period piece vampire horror film, I think that's a great combo. And I'm excited to see what they come up with.
Yeah, me too. Blossom does say vampires. Geez, oh Ruby, I don't know. She says I never was fond of vampires except Mona. She's a vampire from a children's book who thinks she's this vampire superhero, but it's all in her head. That's pretty cool. I have not heard of Mona, so maybe I'll have to pick something like that up for my little boy at some point in time, depending on what the age range is.
For me, I love vampires, and it's all because of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because I was obsessed with that show at one point.
Was it Interview with the Vampire that had with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt? That felt very much like a period piece surrounding vampires. Although I do think the interview itself kind of took place in present day, and then it was sort of like a flashback to the classic time period of when the vampire first kind of became a vampire and his time all the way up into present day. So there is elements of like Interview with the Vampire that kind of comes to mind when I think of period pieces for vampire movies. And I think something like that would be really cool if they go that route of vampire. But regardless, a period piece helmed by Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. Sign me up, man. I'm gonna eat anything that they put down on that table for me as of right now, because I think they've got some great momentum behind them. And Ryan Coogler just continues to drop great film after great film. So I think he's on a great roll right now. But let us know your guys' thoughts. Warner Brothers has officially picked up the Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan film production set to start this April. I think that gets me pretty excited. That almost makes me feel like this movie could drop in 2025 easily.
Mm-hmm. Especially if they, I don't know what the production is going to be like on this, but if it's not like a huge production, it could definitely go for a 2025 release date.
Give me something around like the Halloween release time period if it's a vampire film. Psh, man, yeah, I'm gonna make that prediction right now. This movie is dropping Halloween time period 2025, y'all. But that's just my prediction. We'll see how it turns out. But let us know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below.
It is okay. Sorry, super small tangent here, but it is weird how like horror movies coming out on Halloween is just not the standard like it used to be. I think.
Why do you think
we
that is?
I don't know. That's the funny part is I honestly have no idea. I know that like streaming services seem to take advantage of it because you go on to streaming services during the Halloween season. Yeah. They're packed with horror films that they normally don't carry. So it's weird to me that horror movies don't like, that Halloween's not a standard release. It should be.
It should be. Yeah, because I'm always in my feels during that time period. I always want to watch something, super scary or kind of get in the mood for the holiday. So yeah, I agree with you. All right, guys, we got two more topics before we get into your live viewer questions here. I know some of these topics have run a little bit longer than we would have liked to. We had a pretty big honorable mentions segment, but I still think we got some great topics to dive into. So let's go ahead and get into this. Fresh off of the success of the Hulu original film Prey, Predator is back, y'all. This actually came as a huge surprise to me this week when we wind up getting an announcement of a brand new Predator film that's set to go ahead and drop. This might confuse some people in the sense of, wasn't Prey just an extremely successful movie, Adam? Where is Prey 2? Well, apparently Prey 2 is still in development, but they're like, hey, you know what? We've got another Predator movie for you. I don't know if I'm assuming as at this point, it may end up dropping before we even get something like Prey 2. So I am kind of questioning the release schedule and the idea behind this, but the fact that we've got a very familiar face attached to this project, I think does give me a little bit of confidence, Stuart. So let's go ahead and dive into this. If you are a big fan of the resurgence of Predator after Prey, this definitely might be eye-opening for you. So Dan Trachtenberg is set to direct a new standalone Predator movie titled Badlands as the 20th century expands on its universe. What do you think Badlands represents, Stuart? I'll let you answer that here in just a minute. But following the massive success of the Predator pick Prey, 20th Century is moving forward with the next film as Deadline is hearing Dan Trachtenberg is returning to write and direct Badlands, a new standalone pick in the franchise that is expected to shoot later this year. The film is a high priority for the studio, and sources say Trachtenberg and executives are already meeting with talent for the lead role. So they are pretty far along in this project, honestly. Let me see if I can bring up this photo here. It says plot details are being kept under wraps, other than it will feature everyone's favorite extraterrestrial big game hunter. It is also not known about release plans, as the last film exclusively streamed on Hulu. But given that 20th Century has been very much back in the theatrical game with films like Boogeyman and the upcoming Alien Romulus film bowing in theaters, a theatrical premiere isn't out of the question. When Prey premiered in the summer of 2022, it not only broke streaming records for Hulu, but earned some of the best reviews in the franchise's history. That culminated in a nomination for Best Movie at this year's Emmys. Since that successful relaunch, the 20th Century is looking to not just move forward with another film, but expand on a universe with Trachtenberg spearheading it. Sources do say that while it's still in early development, a Prey 2 is still in the works that would return to the film's original setting, and with the film star Amber Midthunder potentially returning. Sources stress no talent is attached to that film, but the interesting element is that even though there's been 7 films featuring the infamous alien, there have never been an instance where the star of the previous film has returned to reprise their role. I think that's a pretty interesting, like, little movie fact there, that they have not had any returning roles in a Predator film. And Prey 2 could potentially be that film. So I'm looking forward to it, Stuart. I think Amber Midthunder did one hell of a job. I don't know if I had seen her in anything else previous, but I want to see more of her. So Prey 2 is still up there for me. But it does feel odd. It does feel interesting that they're going this route of taking Dan Trachtenberg, who did work on Prey, to now have him write and direct Badlands, a new standalone pick in the franchise, expected to shoot later this year. And they're saying that they're already meeting with talent for a lead in this movie. Let me throw this to you first, Stuart. How are you feeling about this news? Does this excite you? Does this make you scratch your head? Do you think this is the right play? How are you feeling about this?
Interesting move. I think that for me, I would have been slightly more disappointed if it meant for sure that we weren't going to get like a Prey sequel. If it meant that instead of continuing what worked before, we're just going to scratch and start all over again. But I like the fact that we're keeping the Prey franchise going, but then also expanding that universe with more standalone Predator movies. Because yeah, like that thing that you mentioned, how we never had a star reprise their role from a previous Predator movie. That's something I did not think about until you brought it up, and it's like, yeah, because every Predator movie has constantly just been a standalone movie with a completely different cast. So Prey 2 would be the first movie to do that. So I do kind of like the idea of being able to continue that tradition of standalone Predator movies, but also at the same time have a continuing like mainline franchise that you would keep going, kind of just to expand that universe and still be able to experiment with new ideas while still keeping what you know is going to work at the same time. As long as the studio is willing to spend money on it, I'll be willing to watch them.
Yeah, I have a feeling. Um, The article also mentions the idea that they're not sure if this is going to be sort of streaming to Hulu or if this is going to be a big movie. I'm kind of under the impression that they're probably pushing this to be a theatrical release. And the only reason why I say that is it does mention the idea of like Alien Romulus, um, um, maybe going to theaters also. And if they're trying to revive these franchises, I think at some point in time you definitely need to bring these to the big screen. And so while I do think Prey was a great film for Hulu, I think it still would have done great at the box office, honestly. But for some reason, I get this itching feeling that Prey 2 may also go straight to Hulu, since the first one was released there. So I think the idea of like, hey, as long as Prey 2 is still in development, I'm a big fan of that. I need to see a prequel of that, or sequel to that. But if you have the idea of maybe wanting to then go to the big screen and maybe take advantage of something like that for the box office, why not carry that momentum over from Prey by bringing over the director Dan Trachtenberg, right? He clearly has the magic, or has a great unique vision, and then give him another standalone film that maybe you can introduce us to on the big screen and still not necessarily take away from Prey 2. Some people will say, well, Adam, why shouldn't Prey 2 be on the big screen? And my only pushback to that would just be, well, the first Prey wasn't, and maybe they want to go ahead and just kind of keep that same model in the sense of like, hey, if we release Prey 2, maybe you got your casual moviegoer that's like, well, where was Prey 1? Like, I don't even remember seeing Prey 1 in the movie theaters, and realizing, oh, by the way, you got to go to the streaming service to certainly check that one out. That would be really the only pushback that I would have, because otherwise, I think Amber Mid-Thunder deserves to be on the big screen. I think she had a hell of a performance, and Prey was such a great movie. So I think that's probably the plan of what we're seeing here, is the idea that they want to take the person who did such a great job with making Prey, sort of revamping and re-energizing this franchise, and give him the opportunity to have something on the big screen and see how it could do in the box office. Now, what I looked up real quick, Stuart, was Badlands. Where are the Badlands? And the first thing that comes up is Badlands National Park in western South Dakota. And I think they even mentioned the idea of Badlands being like a North Dakota, South Dakota sort of thing. Wikipedia refers to Badlands as a type of dry terrain where softer sedimentary rocks and clay-rich soils have been extensively eroded. So it feels like a rocky sort of landscape, if you will. So I am wondering if this is going to be, I feel like this could easily be another period piece like Prey was, but maybe during a different time period. Like, I think that's really what um, allowed a lot of people to gravitate towards it. The first Prey movie was the idea that it was a period piece. It was set in a completely different time period. And so to see how a character tackles that aspect during that time period of having to face against a predator, I think really went a long way. There's a part of me that feels like I've heard rumblings also that Badlands may be sort of a near future film, or maybe like a more present day type of film. I'm not quite sure, but a setting like the Badlands, maybe in South Dakota or North Dakota, where it's, very dry, very rocky, a lot of hills and slopes. I mean, that might be pretty interesting, unless the idea of Badlands just has a completely different meaning for this film. But I would be interested to see where this film is placed more than anything. What do you think, though, Stuart? Do you have any idea as to, when you think of Badlands, like what comes to mind for you, or like what setting you would like to potentially see a Predator film take place in?
Probably like a small town outside of the Badlands. I think that's what they would go with, because it feels like in every Predator movie, and which makes sense for the Predators themselves, because they don't want to be like, they want to have a sport. They want to make this a sport. They don't want to make this a war. So they tend to attack people in places that are very isolated. So I could see this taking place in a small town where, you know, you would have this huge event where people are trying to survive, but it's a small enough town to like where after all this devastation happens, if they go forward with it about it to the press and everything, it's unlikely anyone's going to believe them. So the Predators still have their hunting ground, you know, the exact same way it is. That's my prediction.
I mean, I kind of dig that concept. I like the idea of like a small town having to like figure out how to handle some shit like this. So it would be pretty interesting. But again, we'll see if Badlands has that meaning that we think that it does, or if they're going to be going in a completely different route. But I will be interested to know what you guys think. I don't think that this is a bad strategy. It confuses me at first, but I think the more I think about it, I think it probably will land. And I think the fact that you've got Dan Trachtenberg to come back, I think immediately makes this a win for me. But we'll see. What are you guys saying? Marcian says, I just checked, and Amber Midthunder will have a recurring role in Avatar: The Last Airbender live action show. Okay, interesting.
I'm curious who she's playing then.
The actor who played the translator in Prey says he would like a prequel film where he first encountered the Predator prior to the events of Prey. That would be pretty cool. I would love to see that. Maybe even a prequel on top of a prequel would be pretty badass. Marcelino says, I still hear people saying Prey ripped off the fan film Warrior Predator. Not only that, they also say that the fan film is leagues better than the actual film. First off,
I disagree with that.
I would highly disagree with that. That sounds very biased to me. Granted, look, have I seen the fan film Warrior? No, I haven't. But Prey was one hell of a film. And I do think if they had an argument about it being a ripoff, I think there would probably be some sort of lawsuit or something like that in regards to it. So I don't know if that's something that they are capable of holding up in court or not. But I can't even fathom the idea of the fan film actually being leagues better than the actual film after watching the movie several times already. But, you know, to be fair, maybe I need to give the fan film Warrior a shot first. But from what I saw, it was just like a quick snippet. It was like an action sequence. Like, I'm curious how long the fan film itself was. Like, was it an actual like hour-long film with a backstory, or was it just a 5-minute sequence of something along these lines?
I think it was like, if I remember correctly, it wasn't like 15 like to 20 minutes. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to shit talk this movie. It was it was a movie clearly made with a lot of passion, and that's awesome. I love watching fan films every now and then. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I say this is one of the better ones, but you know, whether or not this inspired Prey, you know, you could debate. But because, you know, that was a short film with very little dialogue, if any. I don't even remember if there was dialogue. I think it was one of those short films where it was all just, you know, straight to the point. So to say that inspired Prey, I would probably say there's a possibility. But to say that Prey ripped it off, no. I am going to argue with you. I will tell you that you are completely wrong.
Yeah, whoever's saying that. Not to say that Marcelino's saying that, but whoever is out there saying it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's see what else we got. We got one more topic for you guys today. But yeah, first off, let us know your thoughts. How do you feel about the idea of a Predator Badlands movie? Do you like the idea of the person attached to Prey coming back to do this particular film, and you kind of carry that momentum? And what do you think the premise of Badlands certainly might be? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below, guys.
Also, I just looked it up. So Amber Midthunder is going to be in the live action Avatar, and she is playing Princess Yue, aka the Moon.
Okay, nice callback, Marcelino, for bringing that to our attention, man. I appreciate that, because yeah, I wanted to see her in more things, so this is just another reason for me to check out Avatar: The Last Airbender.
And then after you get hooked on that, you can show your son Avatar: The Last Airbender, the original series.
The original series, yeah. I've got to get to that damn show, man. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to Predator Badlands. All right, guys, last but not least, our next topic comes up because, look, I'm a huge Christian Bale fan, and I feel like anything this man touches, I'm definitely going to go ahead and certainly give a shot. But he's in the news this week because he's actually tackling a very classic character that, I'm not going to say I never envisioned him tackling, but the notion of him tackling has really intrigued me even that much more, just based off of the talent that Christian Bale brings to a film. And the idea that I feel like he really morphs into these characters that he's portraying. And if there's any character that I think he can bring a brand new dimension to and add more layers to, it is that of the classic character Frankenstein. I was really surprised about this announcement here, but apparently Christian Bale is getting ready to film this movie relatively soon. This is from the HollywoodReporter.com, and this is going to give us a breakdown too of what the story is about. But Christian Bale to shave head to play Frankenstein in Maggie Gyllenhaal's Warner Brothers film. So let's go ahead and dive into this one. It says Christian Bale will be soon headed back to work with a lot less hair. During an interview on Thursday, where the Oscar winner led a groundbreaking for a 16-year passion project that will be a village of homes where foster siblings can live under one roof, the Hollywood Reporter asked Bale what's next on his schedule. He says, I've got to shave. He says, I've got to shave my head next week for a movie, he said, referring to the untitled Maggie Gyllenhaal film he's about to do for Warner Brothers, in which he will play Frankenstein. Shooting is expected to start in the coming weeks. He says, I asked them to please let me hold off on doing that, but everyone was going, what's wrong with Bale? What's up with him? I said, just let me get through the groundbreaking and then I'll be off to join you. He says news on the project's surfaced last August, and most recently, Headline and Deadline revealed that Gyllenhaal had gathered an all-star cast for her second effort in the director's chair. Bale is set to star opposite Jessie Buckley, Annette Bening, Penelope Cruz, and Peter Sarsgaard in this Frankenstein film. The January 12th report, which noted that the film originally was set up at Netflix before moving to Warner Brothers, said it's set to focus on Frankenstein's pursuit of love. The log line follows a lonely Frankenstein who travels to 1930 Chicago to seek the aid of Dr. Euphronius in creating a companion for himself. The two reinvigorate a murdered young woman, and the bride is born. While the Hollywood Reporter didn't have time to ask Bale about the plot, the actor did take a moment to praise his collaborators. He says, I'll be working with the wonderful Maggie Gyllenhaal, Jessie Buckley, and so many talented actors in the cast. I've got to get busy getting on the rack, breaking my bones, and eating lots of fertilizer or something to try and grow. Look, leave it up to Christian Bale to fully invest himself in any role that he certainly takes. I mean, I think if there's any actor out there that I've seen transform his body entirely, it is Christian Bale. I mean, he goes to extreme lengths. I can't remember, was it The Fighter that he was? I can't remember. There was like a movie opposite of him and like, why is his name?
I know exactly which one you're talking
He was
about. But
like
I'm
the
also
brother. He
blanking
was
on
like
it.
he was like the brother
Yeah.
of a boxer, and he had he was like a junkie or like a drug addict, and he lost so much weight for this role. It was just startling to see. I think he was like opposite Mark Wahlberg, maybe. I can't remember. See if you can find out that movie where he lost a ton of weight for it. But if there's
It was The
anybody,
Fighter, yeah.
The Fighter, right?
And what's so freaking insane about that is that okay, The Dark Knight came out in 2008. Christian Bale, I'm not going to say he was like super ripped, but man,
He was shape.
Yeah, he got in really good shape for that movie. So he did it for The Dark Knight, and he kept that shape for Terminator Salvation. And then to go from that body to suddenly The Fighter, where he looks he's incredibly hard to look at, like because of like how skinny he gets. And then only 2 years after that, go back to looking like he did in The Dark Knight for The Dark Knight Rises. how is this man not dead?
And he had to put on extra weight too. I think for a movie that he did with like Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. I can't remember the name of that film. He was like a little pudgy guy in that movie. So his body has been to the extremes and back, honestly, when it comes to film. So the fact that he's talking about not only shaving his head, but now he's got to hit the rack and gain all this weight to represent this Frankenstein monster sort of thing. I'm really excited for it. And I do think, while I think the prosthetics and the makeup and stuff is going to certainly look great on him. I am really fascinated by this because this feels not just like your typical Frankenstein movie, but like a Bride of Frankenstein movie. And the idea of seeing Frankenstein sort of in a love story instead of necessarily being chased down by, pitchforks and
Mhm.
torches and things like that. I do think it's a really interesting, I don't want to say spin because the Bride of Frankenstein movie has been told before, but the fact that this is sort of its own standalone movie, that we're not getting like the first Frankenstein movie first, like we're immediately diving into the fact that like Frankenstein is already an established character, and this really being sort of the Bride of Frankenstein movie sort of redone is really fascinating to me. And I think if anybody can bring out sort of the complicated character that is Frankenstein, and just add so many additional layers to that character, I think Christian Bale's going to crush this role, honestly, because I think Frankenstein is just so much more than just this monster of a character. The fact that he does have these, like, there was a great series on, I can't remember the name of it though, that did dive into Dr. Frankenstein a little bit more, along with the monster and other sort of classic monsters. But it really just shined a light on the layers that is the Frankenstein monster. So I think if anybody's gonna do a hell of a job here, is definitely going to be Christian Bale. And when you start talking about the idea of a love story, I find that even much more fascinating. And I didn't even think about this, Stewart, but Marcelino brings up a great point. He says, if Bale, if
Yeah.
Bale and Gyllenhaal are working again, does that mean Bale will have a second chance to save his love after the Joker killed Rachel back in 2008? Because that's funny irony. That would be hilarious. I don't think Maggie is playing the Bride of Frankenstein in here, but hell, that's a really great callback, man, to see them working together on a project. But I think this has a chance of really surprising some people that might be sleeping on this particular film. What do you think though about this development?
Oh yeah. The thing about Frankenstein is we get movies about Frankenstein like all the time. So anytime you're going to make your own version of the character, you have to have a good hook to it. And I
Yeah.
think right now they're off to a really good start by having Christian Bale playing Frankenstein. Obviously, when it comes to Frankenstein, if I think of the character, Boris Karloff is the very first actor that's always going to go through my head, as it is for probably everyone out there, because that's, even if you haven't seen the original Frankenstein, you've definitely seen his image somewhere on the internet, somewhere out there, basically. But, that being said, Frankenstein is such a fascinating character because, depending on the adaptation, he can be ugly. He can be, if you go by the book, he
Right.
can be extremely handsome, but like something off about him because of the eyes, things like that. I mean, it's kind of funny to think just this last couple of months, we've gotten two different Frankenstein movies, if you count Poor Things and Lisa Frankenstein as, Frankenstein movies.
Wait,
And
wait, wait,
yet
wait, 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 wait. Poor Things is a Frankenstein movie?
kind of. I mean, not literally. Like
Oh,
obviously it's
okay.
not like actually Frankenstein, but it's
I gotcha.
a very similar premise. You
Gotcha.
have Willem Dafoe playing a very similar character to Frankenstein in
Yes,
that
that makes sense.
yeah, in that he's a scientist, a mad scientist. He literally, his name in the movie is literally God.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
That's definitely on my list to check out, but I'm sorry. Continue your thoughts on this. I'm sorry.
Uh, yeah, so all that to be said, like what makes those movies work is they all have a really fun hook to Frankenstein, and I think whether it be like in the case of Poor Things, having kind of a cool movie that's like kind of a metaphor for just being a woman in a world where men are always trying to control you, in the movie Poor Things, or in Lisa Frankenstein's case, just being an outcast and like needing another outcast to really connect with in order to help you connect with other people. I think they both kind of do something very fun with the character of Frankenstein. I'm really excited to see what they do with Christian Bale, because as much as like I always think of the ugly, early, 30s Frankenstein, the thing is, again, like I mentioned, he can look like anything, like anyone. So I'm excited to see if they go with a heavily prosthetic looking Frankenstein, or if they go with kind of a more, book accurate Frankenstein, where he's extremely good looking, but there's something off about him.
I think you make a great point there, Stuart. And Frankie says, I think the original Bride of Frankenstein was a love story, unrequited, but still a love story. Search for love. It was a masterpiece. They've got big Frankenstein boots to fill. They certainly do. Um, Oh, and Marcelino says, and don't forget David Harbour and Indira Varma have been cast to play Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein and Creature Commandos.
That's right.
Look, maybe 20. Look, man, maybe 2025 is the year of a year of Frankenstein, bro. So we'll have to see. Although I think Creature Commandos actually might be dropping this fall. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think Frankenstein could definitely look like anything. And I have always been a fan of the concept of a Bride of Frankenstein sort of thing. So to get a powerful actor like Christian Bale, somebody that we know is going to just envelop himself into this role, man, I'm actually really excited for this one. So this might be on my most anticipated list for next year. So we'll see how it turns out. But guys, let us know your thoughts. I am kind of curious how you feel about a Frankenstein movie starring Christian Bale. Are you excited, especially now that you know the premise about it? Is this something that you weren't familiar with, but now it's kind of piqued your interest? Or do you have a favorite Frankenstein movie that you guys refer back to? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. But yeah, that's a good one, man. I'm so glad that Hollywood Reporter reported on that, because I didn't even know that movie was being made. I'm trying to think of what was Maggie Gyllenhaal's other films that she's done.
I didn't even know she directed.
I think this is her second film, so I don't necessarily know if she's. I don't know how. Let me see if there's an IMDb page. You can look that up, Stuart, and let me know. But while you do that, I think it's time for our final segment. Let's get into it.
And now, everybody, it is time for live viewer questions.
And if you have a live viewer question, guys, we usually will post it a Friday night or Saturday night for you guys. So you can go ahead and submit it over at any time. For those of you who want to know, how do I submit a live viewer question in the future? It's pretty simple. Just go over to our YouTube page, as you see right here. Click on that community tab, and there will be a live viewer question post for you guys. Again, every Friday evening or Saturday, this is posted. And we've got 7 questions today. Let me go ahead and revamp this or reboot this, and we'll dive into it. We'll try and see if we can breeze through some of these. We've almost been going for 2.5 hours here, so let's see what we got. Jessica Friedman, would you like to have some former Rangers besides Billy show up in Cosmic? Wait, would you have liked to have seen some former Rangers besides Billy show up in Cosmic Fury? And do you think with the right network marketing and time slot, Kamen Rider Dragon Knight could have been big as Power Rangers? What do you think on that Kamen Rider one?
Oh, on the Kamen Rider one, definitely. If I knew about that show when it was out, I definitely would have watched it. But problem was, it was on a network that I didn't have, and yeah, I didn't even know about the show until I started getting into Kamen Rider.
Yeah, I mean, how about as far as the first aspect of that question, would I have liked to have seen former Rangers besides Billy? Yeah, I mean, based off of it being cosmic, I thought maybe we would get some callbacks to like more space-esque Rangers, like in space character, maybe Galaxy, Lost Galaxy. But I'm perfectly okay with Billy. I think it was pretty fitting. So I have really no complaints on it, honestly.
The one thing I wish they could have done is found a way to do like one legacy character from every era, in the show. So like,
Uh-huh.
Billy, of course, Zordon era. You get like maybe Lost Galaxy for post Zordon, one for Disney, and then one for Neo Saban, and then one for Hasbro.
Yeah, I would have dug that, honestly. Real quick, Marcelino says there are so many topics that came up this week. Some I thought were going to be the main topic of this week, but hey, everyone picks their favorites. Yeah, I mean, trust me, Marcelino. This week there were so many topics. Sometimes it's hard to just have six that really stand out to me. So I picked out some of the ones that I felt some people want to know. I usually always try and pick out an MCU and DCU couple ones, and then some really fascinating sort of movie and TV news here or there. Maybe some topics we haven't really talked about, some things that I thought were interesting enough to bring to people's attention. So, trying to produce a show and put a show together, there's just so many topics that you're right. Sometimes I try and pick my favorites. Sometimes I try and tackle things that we haven't talked about or big popular actors to kind of give them some shine a little bit. But yeah, it could be pretty difficult, and I think that's sometimes why the honorable mention section gets so long, because I almost want to shove everything in there, but I gotta hold back from time to time. And shout out to Dan for joining us. What's up, Dan? Over on YouTube, he says Thunderbolts could move to September of 2025, with Fantastic Four to 2026, with Phase 6 beginning on that year instead of 2025, and Blade to 2026 as well. I mean, that's a possibility. I don't know if that's the plan as of right now, but again, I think the idea that we've talked about, that Captain America 4 might lead into Thunderbolts, the idea of it maybe coming after Captain America 4 would be an intriguing one. So that would line up with your 2025 date, and maybe Fantastic Four in 2026. So, look, I'm going to leave it up to Bob Iger and Marvel Studios to move around that particular release date. But we'll see. We'll see what sticks kind of going forward, and maybe we'll have some more clarification at things like San Diego Comic-Con this year, if Marvel's even in attendance. Maybe we'll have some further insight at D23 if they have that convention this year also. So we'll see. Johnny Marrero with a couple questions. Do you think Boom Studios should do a Forever Red comic with Amelia being the forefront? I don't know if they should do a Forever Red comic. I think it would be pretty cool with Amelia being at the forefront. But, I think Amelia had her time to shine in Cosmic Fury for sure. Whether or not they continue along with her in the comic book realm as an important character going forward, that I don't know. But, if Forever Red 2 never makes it to fruition in live action, I wouldn't mind a Forever Red story kind of continued. Whether or not Amelia's at the forefront, who knows? But I do think that there's a generation of like Red Rangers after the first Forever Red that we can really kind of focus on. So maybe Amelia and a couple of other Rangers put together another mission. I wouldn't mind like a small little mini series, kind of similar to what they did with like the Lord Draken stuff, or like the Coinless kind of storyline. I think we might have had like a small little mini series of stories. So if they wanted to do like a Forever Red 2, but in a limited series kind of format, I would be down with that. I don't know if they should do one, but the idea of it happening, I'd be cool with that.
Kind of same here. Prefer, obviously, if there was ever going to be a live action Forever Red 2, yes, I would definitely take that over a comic. But given that I don't see that ever happening, yeah, I would definitely not mind a Boom Studios comic book of a Forever Red team up.
Do you still hope for MMPR and TMNT 3 with Lord Zed and Shredder teaming up? Have we gotten the second one yet? Did they give us a second one?
They did, yeah. They had I haven't read the second one, but they did do a sequel.
I mean, if there's more story to tell, yeah, why not? I mean, if the second one was as good as the first one, then yeah, give it to me. But I haven't read the second one as of yet. But I was a big fan of the first one. And how Lord Zed and Shredder have not teamed up in two iterations of this, I have no idea. That kind of blows my mind a little bit. Like they haven't teamed up yet, but maybe if it's worth telling.
So would their team up name be Shred?
Yeah,
with 2 Ds.
Yes, give it to me. I love it, man. I love it. And he says, if there's a what if version of Power Rangers, what would you want to see? I think we tackled this question once before.
I think we have.
Because I think the first thing that came to my mind was like, what if they didn't leave for the peace conference? You know,
Mhm.
what if Corone didn't die in Lost Galaxy or Kendrick? Excuse me.
Yeah. God, what
Shout out,
else?
shout out to Frankie. Shout out to Frankie with the $5. Not even leaving a comment, but just showing his support to the channel, man. Thank you, Frankie. That $5 will definitely go a long way, man. We really appreciate your continued support around here.
I think because everyone brings up the argument of why would Zordon recruit teenagers with attitude. I would love to see a what if Zordon recruited, fully athletic, basically adults who are your typical idea of what you would imagine a superhero being, but have it end really badly. Show like maybe there was a reason he chose teenagers with attitude, whether it be because teenagers are open for new ideas, they're still learning, and therefore you can still teach them new things, whereas adults are so stuck in their ways. Zordon can give them an order, they'll ignore it and do their own thing, and then that's what ends up getting everyone killed. Something I'd love to see something like that.
We kind of have something like that similar in Boom Studios comics already.
That's right, with Grace Sterling.
Yes, with Grace Sterling and her team, their mission on the moon, they were all adults, if I'm not mistaken, and they got their ass whipped and
Mm-hmm.
killed, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it was one that was really traumatizing for Grace, and I think really gave Zordon a different perspective on how to go ahead and put your in the comics with the 1969 Rangers. Yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to bring to his attention. So I wouldn't mind an expansion on that. In fact, I would be like, what if that mission did not fail?
Mm-hmm.
What would our Power Rangers kind of look like at that point in time? So I think that's a great one, because it kind of already builds off of a premise that's already been established. So I would dig that.
Another one that could kind of work, because I'm curious who Rita would have gone with then. What if Tommy never moved to Angel Grove?
Ooh, yeah. You have to pick a new Green Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they have some really great premises for that. We'll see what the Power Ranger animation stuff is like going forward, if they ever still tackle it, but we'll see. Marcelino's up next. He's got a couple questions here. Bloodshot was supposed to be the launching pad of a Valiant Comics cinematic universe, but the movie itself was panned. But is there still hope in saving this universe? The rights have
No.
now shifted to. I didn't even finish the question. He's like, no, it's just not. It's just not happening. Look, the rights have now shifted to Paramount after previously being owned by Sony. I agree with you. I think I mean, maybe 10 years down. When did that movie even come out? I agree. I mean, I think Bloodshot had like 2 iterations of it. Didn't Jason David Frank try and do a Bloodshot movie
I
too, if I'm
was
not mistaken?
I was just gonna say, so it wasn't Bloodshot specifically, but he did play Bloodshot in a what was it called, the Variant comic book universe. But yeah, so basically it was a like a series of short films that were later like stitched together into one movie. And yeah, so what I was gonna say is that this was a low budget fan film that technically wasn't even allowed to make money, because again, fan films aren't allowed to profit. And that one was so much better than the one that we got with Vin Diesel. And so when you have a fan film like upstaging you in that way, it's unlikely your established universe is going to continue. If they do go back to this universe, they're going to have to reboot it. I don't think you can continue with the way you started, honestly.
Yeah, I think this is like a 10, 15 years into the future sort of thing. I wouldn't even be surprised if Paramount no longer has the rights to it at that time. Maybe somebody else picks it up that's like, hey, we still want to do comic book genre stuff, but that's like vastly different from what we've gotten in the past from like Marvel or DC. Maybe there's a audience out there somewhere, but my God, I mean, you got to do some big things. So I would agree with you, Stuart. I don't believe there's hope, but maybe it surprises us in like a decade or so.
Mm.
Marcia says, at one point, there were talks about a potential Halloween versus Hellraiser film similar to Freddy versus Jason, but that never happened. However, now that David Gordon Green trilogy over, Hellraiser being rebooted, and Miramax Television now in the process of making a Halloween show, is it possible that this old idea could be revisited?
I hope not, because I love Michael Myers and I love the Cenobites, but they are on two very different playing fields there. I don't know how you could make a Mike Myers versus the Cenobites with it like actually feeling like, you know, even. It feels like they kind of got a bit of an unfair advantage over him. And I feel like you'd have to change so much about Mike Myers to make him on their level that you would have a different character at that point. And at that point, why even make Halloween versus Hellraiser? But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone has an amazing script idea of how it could work. But for me right now, I don't see it working.
I wonder, have they ever made a Halloween versus Hellraiser like comic book? I don't know. I'm trying to see if they've
They
ever made
may.
like a comic book or not. I don't. I've tried to pull it up. I'm not seeing anything. Um,
The only one I know of was the three-way crossover with Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
Gosh.
Now,
Okay.
Ash versus Michael Myers. That's something I'd love to see if
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
what's his face is still down to play Ash. Bruce Campbell. I don't know why his name slipped my mind. Bruce Campbell. If he's still down to keep playing Ash, I'm down to watch him.
Yeah, and lastly, he says, "What was your reaction when you guys dealt with the more toxic side of the Legends fandom?" He says, "I remember when Stewart made his review for the worst episode of Legends that were people pushing back against him, saying that it was a great episode and Legends is the best show. I also remember when Adam made his painkiller being canceled video. Somewhere during the video, he said that CW keeps renewing bad shows, which includes Legends. And there were people in the comment section pushing back against his opinion, saying that Legends is a great show and that you don't get to talk bad about it because you refuse to watch it. These same people attack anyone who talks bad about Legends, like Eric's Reloaded.
Mhm.
So, you want to answer your question? Do you remember any of the
Yeah.
pushback you got?
Oh yeah, no, I remember it. No, I wouldn't say it was toxic. I have to look back at the comments, but if I remember correctly, like most of them were fair. It was just they were fans of the show, and that was totally fine. And it was one of the reasons I didn't want to keep reviewing the show is because I felt bad because I kept shitting on it every week, and I didn't want to. I wanted to really enjoy it, but unfortunately, it just it became harder and harder to enjoy because you know it kind of felt like the show was just relying on kind of cheaper lowbrow humor as it kept going. And you know, a lot of people liked the humor in the show, and that was totally fine. But because I didn't enjoy it, it just became hard to review because I feel like okay, actually, because Legends is an objectively comedy focused show, right? I think that that's something that Legends fans can agree with. It's more focused on comedy, which is totally fine. But the thing about comedy is that it is very subjective. So you're either down with the humor or you're not. And I think for me, just the humor hit me at points during season 5, because if you look at my reviews of Legends season 5, they were very optimistic. I, for the most part, really enjoyed my watch of Legends season 5. It was when it went to season 6, it kind of felt like the writing, the jokes got really lazy. You know, obviously the superhero aspect of it was very, very watered down. I think due to budget, but I could be wrong there. So that all being said, again, people like the humor in it, and that's totally fine. It just didn't connect with me personally. And I never took it as anything bad when people said that they disagreed with my videos, because I don't remember any of them being like rude or anything like that. I just remember them kind of like saying, "What are you talking about? This show is amazing." You know, it wasn't like Snyder fans where they said, "You just don't get it." You know, whereas like I'm the problem why I didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I never got that sense from any of my comments in my my Black Lightning video of CW passing on the painkiller spinoff. I never felt any of them were toxic. In fact, I'm kind of like going through some of my comments right now, and I feel like a lot of them were really positive in the sense of like, yeah, we agree with you. This you know, we kind of really wanted one before, you know. There is only really one person that I think was very spammy about their love, and there was a person by the name of Ashley in here that says, "I'm a big fan of DC's Legends of Tomorrow. It's the best Arrowverse show. All the other TV shows, it's better than all the other TV shows that we got on CW." Um, I really just feel like it was just like one minority person, like just very loud, if you will, um, constantly posting like 2 years ago or so But outside of that, I would say like 95% of these comments are like positive in the sense of like agreeing with me in the disappointment that CW passed on Painkiller. So I never got that sense of what you got out of it, Marcelino, that that people were toxic or super negative to me or saying things like so I don't know what comments you're referring to. I mean, if you want to point one out or screenshot something, yeah, feel free to. But I really just see like one account that kind of spammed a couple things here or there that didn't, that was really pushing for Legends of Tomorrow. But I always felt, the comments were fine in regards to that particular video. If anything, I mean, the idea of like I don't get to talk bad about it because I refuse to watch it. Like, no, I spent time watching Legends of Tomorrow. Okay, I spent like 2 to 3 seasons, maybe 3.5, if not 4 seasons. I don't even remember when I kind of fell off at. Honestly, I think when they started really introducing a lot more of the new cast type of thing. But I think I at least had like 3 to 3.5 seasons of Legends of Tomorrow in me that I watched, I enjoyed to a certain extent, and then it went a different route that just wasn't for me. So I felt like I had the right to talk about how I felt as a fan and the different trajectory that it wind up taking, and not necessarily being the biggest fan of it. And while I didn't watch it uh, fully committed to it after those seasons that I watched, when I did poke my head in from time to time, I just wasn't a fan of it. So I think I still had the right to talk about it the way that I did because I remember what the show used to be. And it just didn't land the same way to me anymore. And like people can disagree, and that's fine. Everybody has their own opinion about something. But I was never under the impression that anybody in my comments was ever toxic or, belittled me for having my opinion about what I did when it comes to Legends. So
And also, sorry, one last thing I will say in terms of Legends is that if you think all I did was shit on Legends, all I have to say is go watch my review of the penultimate episode of season 5, because it has been a minute since I've watched it now, but I do remember at the time I saw that episode that actually I was really hooked because I loved the message of that episode. In fact, I think in my review I even say this. It took the message that Supergirl season 6 was trying to go for, but did a season 5, sorry, whichever season it was that had the contacts lenses with the tech that could connect you to the internet. I want to say that was season 5, but basically it took that whole message that they were going for with season 5 that took them, freaking like 18 episodes a season. I think it took them 18 episodes to do this. They told that whole message in 48 minutes in one episode, and they did it a million times better to the point where I was like, I think I got choked up like at one point during that episode. Like it was so good. So when I crap on Legends of Tomorrow, please note that doesn't mean like I hate Legends of Tomorrow as a whole, because it does have some awesome moments in it. In fact, like Marcelino actually brings up Eric's Reloaded, and I love his reviews. Don't get me wrong, I loved his Legends reviews too. But I do actually disagree with him when it came to season 5, because I think he thinks of season 5 the same way as I do with seasons 4 and 6 and 7. Whereas me, I think that season 5 is a bit more of a standout season than most people give it credit for. And stand out in a good way, that is.
He says more popular YouTubers, whenever they talk bad about Legends, they get a lot of hate. I guess because you're not as popular or don't get that same kind of hate. Yeah, I mean, probably. Because honestly, there are some times when we'll post something on our Facebook page, and there are times when it just catches fire. And when it gets more recognition and it gets a wider reach, then yeah, that's when a lot of the comments really come out. So it could just be the idea of maybe our reach not being as far as say like others did. But I feel like the Painkiller video we did got a substantial amount of views on that one.
Yeah.
It really gained some momentum, I thought. But I mean, what is, when I talk about reach, I mean, what, 6,500, so 6,500 views since it was published. So, I'm sure Air Reloaded probably got like 10,000, 100,000 views, but based off of 6,500 views, I think the outcome was pretty positive, surprisingly.
I think,
but you're probably onto something there, Marcelino, for sure.
Yeah, all we need to do is we need to start complaining about everything being woke, and then I'm sure our views will go right up,
Absolutely. Nobody likes positivity these days, even though we do tend to be, we can certainly be critical when we feel it's necessary. Peg C, what's up, Peg C? What are your thoughts on the anime streaming service Funimation website and app officially shutting down on April 2nd and all Funimation ending up on Crunchyroll? I think that they've
Oh.
kind of been getting us ready for this, I thought, for a while now. I thought we had an idea that they were going to that Crunchyroll was going to bring in Funimation. I mean, I never want to say like monopoly or anything like that. But I don't, if anything, I don't really know how that plays, but it's just one, I think it's unfortunate that it's one less place for anime fans to go for their stuff, but maybe it's too repetitive. I don't know. You have any thoughts on that, Stuart? Maybe you might know better than me.
No,
This is
I
where I
agree.
wish the news.
As long as everything from Funimation is going to Crunchyroll, that's totally fine. I like having it all in one rather than having to pay for multiple. Currently, like the last couple times I've checked, Funimation is like with Dragon Ball, for example. I think Funimation still has more than Crunchyroll. But as long as that all gets integrated to Crunchyroll, I don't mind too much. One thing I will say though, even though this wasn't part of the question, if you do watch anime though, Crunchyroll should in general be the last streaming service that you go to, because they I actually had to do a whole thing where I had to research this to find out why this was, but you'll notice that on Crunchyroll every anime is censored, and that's because they only have the rights to air the broadcast versions of animes and not like the actual like
Ooh,
Blu-ray versions of them. So the dumbest thing ever, if you ever watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure season 3, there's a character named Jotaro Joestar who smokes a lot, but he's 16 years old. So in Japanese broadcast television, you're not allowed to show that. So every time he's smoking, there's just a black bar right in front of his face, and it is so distracting. It is like one of the most annoying things. And
really?
especially because I know he's 16, but he does not look 16. So I don't think anyone seeing this guy smoke is going to think, oh, this show is promoting underage smoking. I think they're just going to think he's an adult smoking a cigarette.
Oh man, I didn't know that about the censorship there thing. That's a little bit of a bummer. I like my anime to just be uncut, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he
Same
also
here.
Pexi says, "Would you like to see the crossover with TMNT and Daredevil in the comics, movies, or animation form? Since the creators of TMNT took inspiration from Daredevil, yeah, have we not had one of those before? Like, what are we waiting on, y'all? I
Yeah.
feel like that's a perfect collaboration, honestly.
I think I don't necessarily need to see it in live action, but I would love to see it as either a comic book or an animated movie.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, especially if they get Charlie Cox to voice him.
bro, sign me up, sign me up. I'll be down for that." Yeah, I really want that now. I'm really surprised. Like, I would love a comic book form, like with the original like animator or the original artist from TMNT to do that. I would love to
Like the
see it.
original black and white comics.
Yes, yes. I would
Yes.
absolutely love to see that. Blossom says, "Sorry if I asked this before, but do you get tired of me mentioning my Rangers or any ideas I have? I'll bet you guys are thinking I have too much of an overactive imagination. No, I don't get tired of them. Sometimes I feel bad that I just like can't give you all the ideas that you want, but I'm always open for people that have active imaginations and have just that creative side to them, Blossom. Sometimes I feel like I can get in creative ruts sometimes too. So I definitely don't mind the questions that you have or mention in your stuff. I think it's pretty cool that you're trying to create something over there. So
Definitely. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to answer your question like more clearly a couple weeks ago. Again, just I haven't kept up with some of your work, so I just wasn't like 100% sure what you meant by the question in general.
she says, "What Ranger moments from Power Rangers at Sentai are the most badass to you?" I like when Amelia found out about saved her parents when Min had her mother's morpher. Oh, I liked when Amelia found out about and saved her parents, along with Min had her mother's morpher and Javi on the guitar, etc. So Ranger moments from Power Rangers at Sentai, the most badass moments to you.
Dang, that is a really hard question. Man, ask me to choose my favorite kid here. Man, like I want to go with the big fight scene in Forever Red would definitely be one of them. I think the anytime the rain, so like Wild Force, for example, had this, but anytime you have a team of Rangers losing their powers but still continuing to go back and fight, those moments always
Those are
stand out to
moments.
me as being
Yeah.
incredibly badass. Like Mystic Force, I think, is one that really stands out, where they go on this quest that takes like 3 episodes to get their powers back, and when they get there, the big power that's supposed to give it to them is like, nah, we don't want to. And so they're like, okay, fine. You know what? Screw it. We're going to fight these guys with or without our powers. Like moments like that are when like I really like, cheer for the team.
You bring up a great moment in Super Sentai that I remember from Die Ranger. I think it was the Red Ranger lost his powers, and there's just an epic. I mean, you talk about the idea of a team losing their powers. I think the Red Ranger and Die Ranger was like the epitome of that. He had an amazing sort of out of costume fights on his own, where he just had a level of emotion and determination unlike anything I had ever seen before. And I think it wind up even allowing the rest of the Die Rangers to then access their own powers once again and reclaim their abilities to go ahead and fight against the bad guys at the end, sort of thing. But there is something about still taking that stance, um, even without the costume, and that level of commitment being like, that's a true Sentai moment, or that's a true Power Ranger moment, to where the gods that overlook you or whatever, like, grace you or grant you your powers back, sort of thing, right? Like, I get that moment from Die Ranger when I think back on it. I also love even something as recent as what's the other? Is it Q Ranger? No, Kira Major. The reveal of just the um the relationship between the king and the princess and
Mm.
Garza. I thought that was pretty eye-opening stuff too. So those are some moments in probably even some of the battles from Go Busters, I think, were pretty impactful for me. Even seeing like the Go Buster like helmet kind of cracked open, sort of thing, and he's still fighting through. I mean, they Super Sentai for me has some incredible. I can feel like I can keep going on and on from some great Super Sentai moments, but they just feel so raw and untelegraphed, and they just come up with some great storytelling, man. So that's probably what I would lean on.
One badass moment I love from Kira Major though was that one tracking shot where you had like
Yes,
3
and the
Zords
warehouse.
fighting
Oh,
in the
Zord.
back.
Oh,
Yeah, you had
yes.
some Zords fighting in the background, and while that's going on, we're following. I believe it was the Red Ranger as he's like taking down the foot soldiers one by one, and it was all just this amazing, incredible tracking shot while it was going on.
Yeah, they had a great Kara Major had a great like one long. It was edited, but the way that they edited made it feel like one long shot of them inside of a warehouse from the first floor all the way up to the second floor through several different rooms. I think the Silver Ranger isn't even like jumps out of a window. He falls down into like this crate or these boxes, and he rolls out. And as he runs out into the street, I think you do see a Zord in the background or something. Like, I mean, the drone shots and the way that they've managed to put some of these shots together during some of these recent seasons have really blown me away. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of great badass moments, at least for me in Super Sentai. Also, Tony Robinson, what's up, Tony? He says, could you see Hasbro revealing the Power Rangers reboot cast before the year is over? Yes, I believe so. What about you, Stuart?
Yeah, I think so, especially if they plan to start production on it next year. I hope so.
Yeah, if Hasbro's still sticking with their 2025 sort of thing, I don't even know when is Hasbro PulseCon usually drop. Do you know?
No idea.
Let me see. Hasbro PulseCon. Hey, when did that come out? That was like September. September, so tail end. So you know what? I will say as long as everything stays on track and we don't have anything that stops us, or Hasbro's like, we sold the rights again. Like, as long as some crazy shit like that doesn't happen, I say Hasbro PulseCon 2024 will provide us with the casting announcement for the Power Rangers reboot. If they have it towards like fall, winter of 2024. So there you go, Tony. Keeping my fingers crossed that comes to fruition for you, buddy. Doomsday. Last couple questions here from Doomsday. Which Power Ranger season do you think the absolute best job is an anniversary season? Not really due to the crossover episode, but due to the season as a whole. Whatever Forever Red was in, that's mine.
I'd say if we're going with season as a whole, definitely Cosmic Fury. I think had just enough callbacks without like focusing on the legacy, still telling its own like perfectly constructed story.
I can dig that. I really don't even remember what Forever Red was. Was that Lost Galaxy?
That was Wild Force.
Wild Force, right? That was a pretty
Yeah.
good season too. I don't know if it was my best season, but due to the season as a whole, I don't know. That's tough, man.
I did love the writer of that season because they had this guy named Amit Bamik who during the time of MMPR had created a hoax on the internet, basically where it was a mini series called Scorpion Reign, I believe, and it was supposed to be kind of a series that would tie in the events from Power Rangers Zeo into Turbo, showing you everything that happened in between. But of course, it was all a hoax. Like, it wasn't actually a real series. It was just him like dubbing over like stock footage of Power Rangers. But anyways, they got the guy who created that to make Wild Force. And when he was working on Wild Force, he in interviews has said, "Oh yeah, I considered my fan project to be canon."
Oh, nice. Okay. He says, next one, he says, do you think that the Christmas episode of Gokaiger being a tribute episode to Battle Fever J was kind of random, especially considering that the guy who played Battle Kenya returned mainly as Santa and didn't really do anything to help the Gokaigers obtain the ultimate power? Christmas episode of Gokaiger.
Gonna be honest, like I kind of vaguely remember the episode, but not enough. The only thing I can really remember about it was the interesting costume that they used, where it was like half red, half green.
Oh God, yeah. I barely remember that episode, Doomsday. I might that might warrant a rewatch for me. I barely remember that episode. So I can't answer that question for you right now. I barely remember that episode. How do you feel that we're going back to the traditional Super Sentai Ranger suits for Boon Boomger? I personally am really glad that we are, because even though I dug the suits for Zenkaiger, Don Brothers, and King Oger, I was starting to miss the old suit designs.
I still need to see King Oger, because that one actually had some really cool looking suits.
Yeah, bro. I feel like King Oger to me, while I haven't even watched the series, those suits just still blow me away to this day. I think they're probably some of my favorite Super Sentai suits, honestly. They're up there, at least top 3, if not top 5 for me, for sure. While I am glad that we are kind of going back to traditional Ranger suits. The evolution of what we got from Zenkaiger, I don't even say Don Brothers was pretty traditional Ranger suits too. I mean, granted, we did have like the armor pads and the interesting like symbols and stuff, but I still found Don Brothers kind of like a traditional Ranger suit, unless maybe you think opposite of that, Stewart. But after King Oger, I wouldn't mind a little bit more King Oger mixed in with more original Sentai stuff. Maybe more armor kind of plated stuff would really work out. King Oger just felt like it embraced the Kamen Rider vibe to me when it comes to suit designs, and I wouldn't mind a more of a mashup between King Oger and traditional Super Sentai suits. So that would probably be like the next evolution I would like to see. I mean, I don't the Boon Boomger suits, Super Sentai traditional suits are growing on me. But I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of wish I would like to see a more modern mashup of modern day King Oger and traditional Super Sentai. But what do you think, Stuart?
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I think Actually, yeah, I would say like John Brothers don't feel too traditional to me, but I don't mind them going back to traditional in this. I do think that mixing the two is always a win, but I can kind of see why, like if you're constantly trying to do something very fresh, I guess going back to something traditional in a sense of simplicity is not a bad idea, especially
Yeah.
because we haven't had really simple designs in a minute. The only thing I'm not a fan of with these new costumes, though, I think it's the same thing that a lot of people are talking about. I just really don't like the visors. I get what they're going
Oh,
for,
the
like
helmets and stuff.
steering wheels, yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like not even the whole helmet I hate. It's like literally just the visors that I really just cannot get behind at all. Um, you know, I think the suits, the actual suits themselves are fine. I actually really like how they kind of look like outfits that you would see from like NASCAR drivers. I just can't get behind the visor.
No, I get it. Yeah, I think if there's anything that throws me off, it's still the helmets a little bit, like the whole rims and stuff of the wheel, like wheel rim, I guess they're supposed to be like rims for the wheels,
Oh, see, I
or
was
maybe
thinking
they're
they were wheels.
like steering wheels. I mean, maybe some. I'll have to look at them again. But I do think that they'll probably. The suits are growing on me, and I do think that the henshin sequence will even add to my enjoyment of the suits when we get to it. So while I am a fan of them going back to traditional suits, I wouldn't mind a more fascinating design for one kind of going forward. But we'll see how it turns out, man. I kind of want to give the first couple episodes a shot, see what the season is going to be like. Somebody mentioned that they're probably going to do a press conference here, maybe in the end of February or very beginning of March. So maybe we'll get ourselves a full trailer for it. So I am looking forward to seeing what the full trailer might actually look like, and hopefully add some more to the story and to who these characters are. Maybe something I can kind of get behind. But we'll see. But guys, that will do it for our live viewer question segment. So thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to go ahead and submit these great questions over. And it's always fun to pick your brain and see what you guys are thinking about week to week. But Stewart, I think that's going to do it for us, man. We got a big Super Bowl here in about maybe
Yeah.
two and a half, 3 hours. We'll see how it goes. Kickoff, baby. San Francisco 49ers against Kansas City Chiefs. Let us know who you guys got in the comment section box below. But I think that's going to do it for us here. We will be back next week. Don't worry. You can definitely check us live next Sunday. Stewart, if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
You guys can find me at TurboStew01 over on Instagram. Also, it's kind of funny. If we were doing this podcast like during the Super Bowl, undoubtedly you would be able to hear my neighbors cheering or booing, depending on how the game goes. We'll find out.
Are you going to hang out with your neighbors? They have like a party going on or what?
No, I'm just probably gonna watch it at my apartment. Yeah, just gonna chill on my couch. This will be actually like the first Super Bowl I kind of just watch by myself. Usually I'm always like doing like somewhat of a social gathering, whether it's with friends or family, but this will be the first time where it's like just me, a beer, some hot wings, and maybe some weed either during the pre-show or during the what do you call it? The halftime show.
Halftime show?
Yeah, I don't know why that slipped my mind. I might do some weed during the halftime show, but yeah, it'll just be a nice, chill Super Bowl for me.
Yeah, I think my girlfriend's mom is coming over to watch the game with us. I've never known her to be a big Super Bowl fan, but she's probably just looking for some family time and hang out with everybody. So it should be fun. Girlfriend's making some wings.
Yes.
Absolutely love her wings. I almost stopped eating at Wingstop because I find her wings that good. I would order some French fries, but I'm pretty sure their weight is probably horrendous right now. But so I'm probably gonna do that. I might go pick up a 6-pack after this show. Go get some beer also. But I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl, man. So good luck to your 49ers. Good luck to the Chiefs, y'all. And we'll definitely continue to keep you posted throughout the week with any news and updates. If you want to find us on social media, you can find us right here at all these locations, probably more that I couldn't fit on the screen. We're trying to become more active, doing reels, more stories on our Facebook page and on IG. We're also over on TikTok, which I don't believe is listed up here. You can find us at TikTok at Hero Report. Go ahead and follow us there as well. We post other things there also. Again, if you want to get most of the news throughout the week before our videos drop, Facebook is definitely a great place for you. Keep up to date on posters, trailers, clips, news information all throughout the week. And of course, most importantly, here on our YouTube page. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, guys. We're trying to get to 3,000 or 5,000 by the end of the year. So your support really does go a long way. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell notification so you know anytime we drop a brand new video. But other than that, y'all, that's going to do it for us here today. We'll certainly see you guys next weekend. Until then, do us a big favor as always. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.